in the match ourselves what these players choose to bring.
Well, I want to, be able to kind of hear from them what we are going to be able to see here. So we're going to go ahead and go over to the main stage so we can get introduced to our VGC finalists.
Hello and welcome back to the final day of the 2019 North America International Championship. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you, trainers, for all of the great competition we've seen this weekend here in Columbus, Ohio. We just have 2 trainers remaining from every division, and now the only question left is, who will be our champion? Who do you think it'll be? We have some devoted fans out here, and I'm so excited to introduce you all to our junior division finalists. Let's introduce our players. Please welcome, from Canada, Kenneth Fung! And from Singapore, Connor Yuen! Congratulations to both of you for making it so far. Please shake hands, take your seats, and we can't wait to watch you play. Back to you at the desk, casters.
Thank you so much, Anna, and I sure am excited about this match in the Juniors VGC Finals between Connor and Kenneth.
Yeah, I mean, both these players have had really great tournaments. I wish they could both win, but
I know.
I think neither of them are going to be too upset about making it to international finals. But Connor, maybe even more than Kenneth, hoping for a win here. We saw him play in the finals of last year's North American International Championships. Unfortunately, in that tournament, he came up a little bit short, lost in the finals. We'll have to see, can he finally get that big win this time, or will once again he fall a little bit short as Kenneth takes this championship?
Heard a lot of people in the crowd rooting for both of these players, and I'm just rooting for a great match. So I want to take a look, though, at the bracket of how Connor and Kenneth actually got to this point. You can already see on there that Kenneth had to really fight to be able to get here. Wasn't particularly seeded strongly for this tournament, but ended up making it to this point, beating out a lot of great players in order to get here. And same thing for Connor. Connor had to move their way through the bracket as well yesterday in top 8, and is finally at this point where they get to show us what they're made of.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see how these players fare against one another, and also kind of looking forward to the World Championships. There's several players in this top cut bracket who maybe aren't the usual suspects in the top cut of the International Championships. I know we don't show a whole lot of junior matches, but there's a lot of maybe turnover in the top of the junior division right now. So I'll be curious as we look forward to the World Championships in a couple months. Will these players, including the finalists, be the ones who kind of carry play in Washington, D.C., or will they kind of be more of the usual suspects?
Well, this is where we get started, and we're about to get started with this match between Connor and Kenneth, so I'm ready to see what's going to happen and how this is all going to end.
It should be a really good match here. I think there's elements of this matchup that could go in either player's favor. Some things to keep in mind as you watch this. The restricted Pokemon on either side, we've got Groudon and Xerneas for Connor, and the less frequently seen pairing of Yveltal and Kyogre for Kenneth. Both those Pokemon on Kenneth's side, maybe at a little disadvantage in the cat and mouse game. Kyogre and Groudon, kind of an even match. Whoever has the weather control going to be at an advantage. But since Xerneas has that edge against Yveltal, perhaps more important for Kenneth to keep that advantage because his Pokemon are a little bit easier to knock out.
Well, when we look at Kenneth's entire team and what he's been able to accomplish as getting to this point here, we've got Yveltal, Salamence, Togedemaru, Kyogre, Stakataka, and Tapu Fini. So a really pretty standard team composition from Kenneth so far. But look at how much Kenneth has been able to accomplish this year. Toronto Regional Champion, Greensboro Regional Champion. Those are some really big titles.
Yeah, and a top 4 at last year's International as well. So again, while we saw a bunch of maybe newer names in the top cut bracket, the finalists are both familiar with this stage. Excited to see the Togedemaru. I was originally thinking maybe he wouldn't bring it to this matchup. One of the things you usually use that Togedemaru for is countering Tapu Koko, which Connor doesn't have on his team. But I think it's going to be important for some other aspects of what Togedemaru brings for him to come to this battle. So I'll be excited. It's a cute Pokemon and something we don't see every match.
One of my favorites as well, but if we take a deeper dive into what Connor is bringing as well, we've got Groudon, Xerneas, Gengar, Tapu Lele, Landorus, and Incineroar. And Connor has a distinct amount of accomplishments as well. Malaysia regional champion for this year, top 16 at Worlds last year. And we also talked about this, that they were a finalist at last year's North American Internats as well. So both Connor and Kenneth are looking for that top spot today.
It's sort of interesting looking at Connor's team as well. We see Mega Gengar there, most often paired with Kyogre to try to trap Groudon. On this team, going to support Groudon, try to trap Kyogre instead, perhaps. Both Landorus and Incineroar on his team to probably use U-turn, try to cycle through, get Gengar on the field at the right time without exposing it to too much damage. I think it's be important for Kenneth to try to be a turn ahead. We don't always see a lot of proactive switching in juniors, but I think playing too slow against this team could be tough. Could easily get in a bunch of bad situations against Mega Gengar and that Shadow Tag ability. So Kenneth may be going to need to play a little faster on the defensive side than we normally see in the junior division to avoid falling behind.
Absolutely. I mean, we saw this a little bit yesterday as well on the main stage, that we have distinct play styles from both of these players. One a little bit more aggressive, one that needs to play a lot more defensively, and that can really change the pace of the game. So it's going to really depend on what those leads are, who can get that edge at the very beginning, and we're about to get started. Looking at that team preview, I'm kind of expecting that we're going to see both restricteds on both players come into the battlefield for this very first game, and we maybe even might see those Mega Pokemon as well.
Yeah, it's a really awkward matchup. I feel like on Kenneth's side, it's like you kind of want to use all 6 Pokemon for various reasons. Matchup,
Yeah.
Obviously, you can only pick 4. Tough not to pick the restricted Pokemon. He probably needs to get some form of speed control out, either Yveltal's Tailwind or Trick Room from Stakataka. Togedemaru, the best Pokemon on the team to help enable that, but Fake Out isn't necessarily going to work because of the potential of Psychic Terrain from Tapu Lele, which makes it tempting to bring Tapu Fini. He's going to have to make some sacrifices here. Another thing to keep in mind is the only Pokemon on his team that can learn a move like the U-turn is that Togedemaru. He might want to bring it for that reason, just so we can kind of trade U-turns with Incineroar and Landorus. Otherwise, these Pokemon might just be switching circles around him.
Might be a little bit of a rotating door of Pokemon, but we're ready to get started with this game 1. Connor and Kenneth are going to be battling it out here for the VGC Juniors 2019 Finals at the North American International Championships. And as we get started, we're going to already see some leads here coming out from Connor and Kenneth. Kicking things off, we'll see Yveltal and Stakataka coming to the field. And on the other side of things, we're going to have Landorus and Xerneas.
So a lot of things about this matchup that you probably like if you are on Connor's side of the field. It's Xerneas facing off against Yveltal, so that's a big type advantage. And then Landorus facing off a Stakataka, also a big type advantage. Kenneth potentially needing to make some switches here, but maybe just a good prediction will be enough. It's rough, though. Just simply 2 attacks would be tough to deal with, and most of the Pokemon in his team aren't going to take these attacks a whole lot better either, so even a switch could be really dangerous. Also, of course, always the threat of Xerneas just using Geomancy and starting to run rampant over this team, so just ignoring it and playing too defensively is also tough too. Really great leads by Connor. He's got a huge advantage to start off this game 1.
Oh, but we're going to be kicking things off in a really big way here. We're not going to see that Geomancy first. It's actually going to be a Z move coming out from the Yveltal. So trying to get out some major damage before it gets threatened by the Xerneas being there on the field. Black Hole Eclipse from Yveltal is going to connect with one of the Pokemon on Connor's side because they aren't protected at the moment. It's going to be that Landorus.
Oh, this could be a big deal. If this picks up a knockout on the Landorus, then Stakataka is going to be free either to attack the Xerneas, use Trick Room. The advantage is swapped now, and Kenneth's in a really good spot.
Kenneth is going to be in a good spot, taking a numbers advantage really early on, but now has to deal with the Geomancy on Connor's side of the field.
And so Xerneas is going to power up, raise its special attack, special defense, and speed by 2 levels, but Kenneth might be okay with that. Stakataka here can either use Trick Room and kind of turn that speed advantage around and make it a disadvantage for Xerneas the next few turns, or just use a powerful Gyro Ball. We do see that Trick Room going up, and now Connor's going to have to play defensively. He's threatening a bunch of potential damage, but actually using those attacks safely is going to be tricky, especially with Kenneth's best Xerneas counter on the other side of the field.
Well, Connor is going to be bringing out Groudon to try to help keep that Xerneas safe here. Groudon is going to Primal Evolve, and we're also going to see a little bit of a terrain change as we get some sunny weather in here.
Yeah, I don't know if the sun is going to be a big difference or not, though it could. You'd expect Kyogre is going to be one of the Pokemon in the back. Maybe try to bring that in order to negate any fire-type attacks. But through the ground-type attacks of Groudon that Kenneth and his stack attack are going to be concerned about here. Groudon's exactly the right Pokemon to bring in to try to negate the advantage the stack attack has on Xerneas. It's not going to be able to survive very long against this Groudon. Also interesting for Kenneth to try to learn, is this Groudon trained to use special attacks? Is it trained to use physical attacks? The way you want to deal with that's a little bit different either way. So still that feeling out process in this game, unless the players perhaps played during Swiss and learned a little bit more.
Well, Stack Attacker doesn't like being in the face of Groudon, so it is going to go back to Kenneth, and Kenneth is going to bring out Kyogre. Now will reset the weather here, and Kenneth is continuously off on a good foot for this first game.
Yeah,
fortune might favor the bold, though. It'll be interesting to see if Xerneas attacks or not. Not really any danger now with Yveltal being the only Pokemon to can potentially attack here, but probably just use Protect to to avoid being hit by a Gyro Ball. This will be a big deal either way.
A lot of potential damage now coming in from Connor's side, and Kyogre is going to take a brunt of that. But actually, Connor is going to protect the Xerneas this turn, just in case a Sucker Punch goes into it. But it's the Groudon that Sucker Punch connects with. Earth Power now will find its mark with the Kyogre, but it doesn't take too much because it's not weak to that move.
Yeah, kind of a money switch by Kenneth there. Could have gone really badly if Xerneas had opted to attack. It doesn't, and he gets Kyogre in relatively for free. Groudon doing pretty good damage with that Earth Power, and again, seeing Earth Power an indication this Groudon probably trained to use more special attacks. I'd also guess on Kenneth's team, being a little bit more defensively oriented, this Kyogre is probably slower than Groudon is, so it's going to move before either Xerneas or Groudon and Trick Room. But with all these Pokemon in the field, Xerneas can probably attack safely here. You wouldn't expect either of these Pokemon to have something that's going to threaten a huge amount of damage on the Xerneas. So Kenneth improved his board position against the Groudon, but actually still in a lot of danger here.
Well, doesn't want to deal with anything like an Origin Pulse or potentially anything else coming out from the Kyogre, so it will protect itself, and that means that Groudon's going to be pretty safe here. Unfortunately for Xerneas, Xerneas is going to have to take an Origin Pulse, but it takes it on the chin. Connor Xerneas will be here to stick around unless it gets knocked out by this move from the Yveltal, but that's not too much damage.
Gets it to about half health, but this Moonblast is going to be devastating. We'll have to see which Pokemon it goes into. It's the Kyogre slot. This will probably be a knockout.
It is a knockout. Connor now is going to be able to even the score here. Both of them have 3 Pokemon left, and the weather battle is in control of Connor's hands.
Yeah, Kenneth got that big knockout with Yveltal in the first turn, but it's kind of just hanging out in the field now. It doesn't match up very well with Xerneas. Actually going to have a hard time dealing with Groudon now, too. And Kenneth's going to have to bring something in. You don't want to bring the stack attack in if you don't have to. As much as it checks that Xerneas facing down a Groudon when you know that Xerneas can just use Protect is pretty difficult. And we see Salamence coming in instead. Unfortunately, though, for Kenneth, we now have 2 Pokemon that aren't very good against Xerneas on the field. It helps against the Groudon, but again, how are you preventing the Xerneas from just whittling away at your team? Salamence will be slower than Xerneas, even though it's naturally quicker because of the Trick Room. So Xerneas probably will have to protect here, but the Trick Room's starting to get stalled out.
Yeah, we only have a couple more turns left for that Trick Room, so Kenneth is going to want to take advantage of as many turns as possible that he is allowed to take. So, thinking about maybe the next moves here, if Connor does try to protect the Xerneas, then what might happen? But the Groudon's actually going to switch out. Instead, Tapu Lele coming to the field now. This could be huge.
Ooh, yeah. Kenneth actually has a chance here, though. We got a bunch of fast Pokemon left on Connor's side of the field. If he can take advantage of the end of his Trick Room, he's really got a good shot at this one.
Well, Salamence is going to a Mega Evolve here, reacting with that Salamencite, and that means that Salamence is going to be really Mega powered. There's the Mega Evolve now. You've got Yveltal looking at a Dark Pulse. Dark Pulse will connect with the Tapu Lele, and it does a little bit over half. Double Edge now is actually going to find its way into the Xerneas, and that's a knockout!
Well, that's a huge knockout. I thought for sure Connor would protect the Xerneas, perhaps trying to get a little cheeky there, hoping that Salamence would attack the other Pokemon instead, knowing that Xerneas would be more likely to protect. Unfortunately for him, though, it doesn't happen there, and that's a big knockout. No longer has to worry about the Geomancy for the rest of this match, and it's probably going to be up to Groudon to try to finish up this match now.
Groudon will at least have control of the weather for Connor's side as long as we get to see those turns come to fruition here. But Kenneth does have a 1 Pokemon advantage going into this next one.
So we almost always see Tapu Lele holding a Choice Scarf. Because of that, it probably can't use Protect here. If Kenneth can target down this Tapu Lele, Groudon's going to have a really difficult time knocking out Salamence unless it knows a hidden power. We typically don't see Groudon learn this move, but if it was taught that'd be kind of the only way for Connor to get this back. Otherwise, this is looking like a really disadvantageous board state for him, and he's still got to try to find a way to knock out this fully healthy Yveltal.
Knowing that we are preparing for that Trick Room to end, Stack Attack is going to come back to the field, maybe to try to set up another one when the field does revert back to normal. A Protect coming out from the Groudon on Connor's side is going to be able to keep it alive through any of these attacks. And Double Edge, though, actually going to find its way to the Tapu Lele, and that's another knockout.
Really smart play by Kenneth there. Understands, all right, Tapu Lele almost definitely holding a Choice Scarf. It can't use Protect. I'm going to pick up this knockout that I can get for free, and now he's got a 3 Pokemon versus 1 advantage against a Groudon.
Groudon is still able to do a lot here, but Connor actually opted to protect the Groudon instead of going for some amount of damage onto Stack Attack or Salamence on Kenneth's side of the field. So we are potentially going to have to see Connor either target down one of those Pokemon, but it's actually going to be Salamence moving first. Hyper Voice, Groudon's going to take the brunt of all of this damage, and it's getting taken so low here. Groudon able to fire back with an Earth Power into the Stack Attack slot, and Stack Attack does not take that. It's going to be another knockout, and that's going to be for Connor.
Yeah, so Connor gets another knockout on the board, but it's going to be for naught here. One of the reasons why Salamence is so great is because of how well it does against Groudon. Definitely not the pairing you want to see at the end of the match if you're Connor. The one nice thing for him there, if he didn't already know, he now knows for certain that Stack Attack is not holding a Shuka Berry, that berry that reduces the damage of super effective ground-type moves. So at least he'll know that moving forward into Game 2. But a really well-played game by Kenneth. That Trick Room on the first turn proving to be just a little bit too much for Connor. Connor never able to really catch that one back up, and even though he gets off that easy Geomancy, we're about to see Kenneth take the first game.
Yeah, that's going to be a first game after that knockout from Groudon. So Kenneth starting out this finals match in a big way.
Really impressive first game, and I was a little surprised to see Tapu Lele is Connor's final Pokemon there. Perhaps seeing a little difference between the Junior Division and the Masters Division. You know, Tapu Lele holding that Choice Scarf, most likely kind of a more aggressive, offensive sort of Pokemon. If that last Pokemon had been Incineroar instead, which I think is almost always what we would have seen in the Masters Division, you could have just switched in at the end there, perhaps use a Fake Out to help stall out the Trick Room for Xerneas, and then maybe we see the other player win the game. I think if I'm Connor, that's the sort of adjustment I want to make. You know, use the combination of Landorus and Incineroar to play a little bit more defensively if he has to. Obviously, he lost a Pokemon on turn 1 as well. That's not what you're looking for, but I think he can afford for that to happen. Landorus is probably not the most crucial Pokemon in this matchup, and you know it prevents him from having to worry about Groudon from getting hit by that Z move instead.
I actually really like the choice that you said there. Maybe bring the Incineroar and the Landorus as a nice pair because you do have the U-turn potential on the Landorus that might help to try to change the board state a little bit. And then I also believe that Intimidate, that is a very typical ability of Incineroar, can do a lot to be able to mitigate the damage that Kenneth was able to push out in that first game.
Yeah, I think he's got other ways to deal with the Yveltal, so kind of just playing defensively is the key. I assume Tapu Lele is coming in for Yveltal mostly, right? Like, all right, well, I have a speed advantage, I'll do a bunch of damage, but he's got Xerneas for that already. I think what he needs to do is kind of just use Landorus and Incineroar, or maybe even Gengar to help get those positive board states, pick up those knockouts, because if he just allows the Trick Room to go up again, Kenneth's going to win a match where he can outslug him once he has the speed advantage.
Well, we're going to be kicking off Game 2 now, and we see a little bit of an adjustment here coming out from Connor, as we do see that Incineroar was brought to this match, but Kenneth is making an interesting adjustment as well. Togedemaru on his side of the field.
Yeah, so both sides opting to switch things up. I do like the swap on Connor's end. Unfortunately, there's good and bad things about this league matchup, I guess. Again, I feel like from the concept of just trading attacks, Connor's in a better spot this time, but it's a little bit more difficult for him to try to take advantage of it. He does have to be concerned about just having his Landorus knocked out immediately by a Z move again. On the positive side, he has 2 Pokemon that can do super effective damage to that Togedemaru, and he also kind of has to start thinking here, right? It's like, all right, well, I've seen a Pokemon I didn't see last game, so what's missing on the other side? Is it Salamence, is it Kyogre, or is it Stack Attacka?
Well, Kenneth is going to protect the Togedemaru, bringing it back to its Pokeball and sending out Tapu Fini in its place. This is going to bring that Misty Surge to the field, and that will be able to do a little bit to stop some of the game plan that Connor has.
Connor perhaps expecting that Z-move, switching Xerneas in maybe to take a reduced damage from that attack.
We'll see what's about to happen here. Xerneas is going to take its friend's place. Fake Out, though, onto the Yveltal means that Yveltal's not going to be able to do a Z-move this turn.
Yeah, no bait then, but still better board position. Doesn't have to worry about the Z-move for now. Not likely that Yveltal's going to try that against either of these 2 Pokemon. But also interesting to see Tapu Fini coming in. So Kenneth opting to change 2 of his Pokemon despite winning Game 1. You'd expect that final Pokemon is Kyogre. So his board state, again, Yveltal's in a lot of trouble. Tapu Fini's very safe. But we see the Tailwind, so Kenneth once again opting to try to get control of the speed on the field.
might have expected that Connor was going to make some sort of adjustment for the stack attack specifically, but Moonblast into the Yveltal, even though it's not powered up, is going to be a knockout for Connor.
The big knockout, a restricted Pokemon going down without really getting to use any attacks.
Yeah, and well, we're going to see a light screen here. That's an interesting choice to have on a Tapu Fini, not something that is super, common, but Tapu Fini seems to be tech to be a little bit more tanky for this match.
Yeah, it's a very defensively oriented Tapu Fini. It looks like that Snarl just absolutely shrugging it off. And we'll have to keep in mind what moves Tapu Fini winds up using. If this Tapu Fini doesn't have a bunch of attacks, then Snarl kind of doesn't really matter. It's not there to do damage. It's there to reduce the special attack of these Pokemon. With Togedemaru coming back in, I'm a little curious what Kenneth's plan here is. Maybe he'll go for a fake out on the Xerneas, perhaps, avoiding having to worry about any sort of Geomancy, but that would leave Incineroar free to attack the Togedemaru. Kind of at that point now where, with Yveltal going down without getting to use its Z-move, just trading attacks back and forth are to Connor's advantage, not Kenneth's.
Absolutely. Well, Xerneas isn't going to actually be able to do any damage for Connor this turn as it opts for a Protect, but Togedemaru now wants to try to reposition itself, so we'll go a U-turn into the Incineroar and for a decent amount of chip damage there.
If we see Kyogre come in, this could be a really fantastic play unless we see another Snarl. I guess even if we do, that was cute.
Well, it is going to be the Kyogre, so Kyogre coming in, it might have to take a Snarl from the opposing Incineroar, but it's going to Primal Evolve first. We'll bring that Rain back to the battlefield and see whether it also helps to kind of create a Kyogre's menacing presence here on the board.
It could be really good. Kyogre still has that Tailwind to take advantage of, so it'll be quicker than Xerneas after this turn. And even more, even greater speed advantage now with the Icy Wind slowing down Incineroar at least.
Yeah, will not be able to connect with the Xerneas because it has protected itself against that, but are we going to see that speed drop? Yes, we are. So that Icy Wind is going to help a lot to just ensure that that Tailwind is going to be what it needs to be. But U-turn now actually coming up from Incineroar, not a Snarl. So it's going to go back to Connor's side of the field, and we might actually see that Landorus come back out, but it doesn't really want to be against that Kyogre.
Yeah,
so Groudon.
yeah, we're going to see Groudon. He's going to turn the Rain off, and that's a really good move. Nice play by Connor. I was a little curious what he was going to do with that Incineroar. I think what Kenneth was hoping for on his side was like, well, I'm going to send out Togedemaru. I'm going to show you that I can fake out your Xerneas or hit it with a Steel-type attack. So instead of doing either of those things, I'm going to switch out, try to get an advantage with my Kyogre, maybe get a free attack on the next turn. Kind of reads that really well. Doesn't use a Flare Blitz that would have been negated by the Primordial Sea. Uses U-turn instead, and kind of keeps his advantageous board position with Groudon out now to protect the field from any sort of Water-type attacks.
Yeah, this is going to be a really good position here for Connor. Now that Groudon is kind of exerting a lot of pressure onto the board state, Kenneth is going to have to cycle through his Pokemon a little bit here, and we're going to kick that off with Tapu Fini starting that rotation, Togedemaru coming back out, and hopefully going to keep some of these Pokemon in check on Connor's side. Kyogre, though, actually not going to switch out at all. Going to go for an Ice Beam to just get some damage onto Groudon. That was actually quite a bit there, doing half amount, and is going to have to take an Earth Power back, but it barely does anything to what Kyogre was able to do to that Groudon. Xerneas, though, now going for a Moonblast into the Kyogre, will double into it, but still not too much damage from either side.
That's pretty impressive, really seeing the effectiveness of the light screen that Tapu Fini used earlier.
Yeah.
Kyogre shrugging off 2 attacks from 2 of the most powerful Pokemon in this format, but his health is being whittled down. I wouldn't be surprised if a defensive Tapu Fini like this one knows Heal Pulse, so Kyogre could potentially get some of that health back, but Kenneth's going to need to maneuver quickly. Only has a little bit of that Tailwind left, and once that goes down, it could be a big advantage for the Xerneas, who's now going to have an easier time trying to get that Geomancy up potentially, though not too likely to try to do that in front of Togedemaru.
Kyogre did quite a bit of damage, though, to that Groudon, even with the Ice Beam. And a Fake Out onto Groudon is going to protect both of Kenneth's Pokemon for a while. But it is going to be Ice Beam actually into the Xerneas, and that doesn't do nearly as much. But, hey, wow, we're going to see a Geomancy now from that Xern.
Yeah, great play. I was kind of curious if maybe he'd just try to play defensively because of the threat of Togedemaru just attacking into the slot. But with Groudon there, threatening a knockout on Togedemaru, why not go for it? Xerneas is going to get this Geomancy off pretty much for free and be able to take advantage of it once the Tailwind expires. Connor's got a big advantage in the second game now, and he still has all of his Pokemon remaining to try to cycle in some support for Xerneas.
Ooh, and that's going to be the end of the Tailwind and the end of that Misty Terrain as well. So now Connor really has a significant advantage as that Xerneas is going to get a speed boost coming in from the Geomancy.
Yeah, the light screen is still in effect for one more turn, so that's the one thing really working for Kenneth's side, though Kyogre not going to be able to take advantage of it. Protecting here, we'll have to see what Togedemaru can do to flip the position of the board.
Well, that Dazzling Gleam, good read from Kenneth to know that that was going to be on its way. So Kyogre is at least going to be able to stick around. Togedemaru as well, because that's going to be not super effective. But Iron Head, can Xerneas survive through this? It can. So Groudon, though, going for an Earth Power to see if it can pick up the rest of the health on that Togedemaru, and that will be enough. Connor now takes a significant Pokemon advantage in this game, too.
Yeah, Togedemaru did its best, but it wasn't quite able to knock out that Xerneas, and now Kenneth's in trouble in the second game. Tapu Fini's going to come back in here, and while it has a bunch of cool defensive tricks, perhaps they could try to use their Heal Pulse on that Kyogre, I don't think that Connor's going to need to give him the chance. Xerneas has that Geomancy boost, can threaten a ton of damage into both these Pokemon. Groudon not really all that threatened either now. An Ice Beam could knock out Groudon from here, but I don't know if you can afford to ignore the Xerneas. Really great positioning for Connor, who again still has Incineroar and Landorus in the back should he need them.
Yeah, it's going to come down to the wire a little bit here. Kenneth does have a chance. Might be able to go for a second Protect onto the Kyogre. Is it going to make it? But it failed. Oh no, that means that Xerneas hitting this Dazzling Gleam is going to connect with both of Kenneth's Pokemon, and that's going to be a knockout onto the Kyogre and a decent chunk of damage onto that Tapu Fini. Groudon, though, using the Earth Power, now has only one option left on Kenneth's side of the field. That's not enough to knock it out. Pinch Berry, though, interesting.
Tapu Fini doing its best. Yeah, I mean, kind of unfortunate for Kenneth there, where you're not really going to get anything out of this revealing information. Do get to see how bulky this Tapu Fini is, and the Icy Wind coming in. That is the right play by Kenneth. Obviously, it's not going to turn into too much for him here, but all I can kind of hope for is that maybe Kyogre gets a Chain of Protects off. Somehow, Tapu Fini can slow the opposing Pokemon down enough that Kyogre can either attack safely, or at least he can get a Heal Pulse off into the Kyogre slot. Not going to happen in this game, and we see the forfeit coming in here. So this match is going to be tied at 1.
Yeah, well, what a way to kick off the finals, though. We are going to be going to a Game 3 and an amazing fight coming on between Kenneth and Connor. Connor made some excellent adjustments to that match, but really I think what kind of stole the show for him was taking out that Yveltal so early before it could use its Z-move.
Yeah, I think two things to keep in mind there for Kenneth's side of the field is he now has to try to make the adjustments. One is, I mean, he never got to use that Z-move. He had some chances and didn't go for it. Instead, he went for the Tailwind. It kind of makes sense. Once he got control of the speed in that first game, it was a huge advantage, but this time he wasn't really able to take advantage of it. We kind of saw the struggles of that matchup with Kyogre and Groudon, where since he didn't get control of the weather, kind of didn't really matter that much that he had the Tailwind because he couldn't do any damage.
Right.
Another thing to keep in mind is the team comp that he had that time. Neither Togedemaru or Tapu Fini really going to deal a lot of damage, so it's very important for him to protect those legendary Pokemon. I think if I was Kenneth, I would change my Pokemon up a little bit here, try to get more Pokemon on my team that can actually deal some damage. Try to take the pressure off those restricted Pokemon because Connor has pretty good ways of shutting them down.
I think even with the one Pokemon adjustment that Connor made, Kenneth would have been safe to bring the same 4 that he brought in Game 1. May have to play around that just a little bit differently in terms of like the position of the board, but I'm hoping that Kenneth is going to kind of go back to the strategy that he had in Game 1. And it looks like that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, so we see the matchup here of the lead Pokemon Kenneth used to win Game 1 versus the Pokemon that Connor used to win Game 2. So kind of makes sense. How you get that win, why not try it again? It's a little bit tougher for Kenneth this side. The reason why Connor has switched to this lead in the previous game is now Kenneth no longer has the option of just using the Z-move to knock out Landorus, while Stakataka gets that free Trick Room it got against Xerneas. Here, Incineroar could use Fake Out on Yveltal, allowing Landorus to knock out Stakataka, and then Kenneth's in trouble. So he's probably going to want to leave Yveltal in. It's not really threatened by anything, but Stakataka's going to need to switch out, and there it goes.
Yeah, it is going to return to Kenneth's hand, and now we actually see Salamence hitting the field. That was a Pokemon that Kenneth decided to leave at home in Game 2, but I believe that Mega Pressure is going to be a lot, and unfortunately isn't going to be able to take this Fake Out, so Yveltal is going to take that one. But it's actually a Z-move now coming in from Connor's side of the field.
It's a Ground-type Z-move, though, so regardless of which Pokemon this targets, it's not going to land its mark.
Wow, that was going to be an excellent read from Kenneth's side of the field. It's not going to affect that Salamence that switched in for that Stakataka.
So Kenneth reads that turn exactly perfectly. He understands why Connor led the Pokemon he did, allows him to waste that Z-move, and now it's going to be Connor who doesn't get to use or get any damage from a Z-move this game. Also, actually, pretty good positioning for Kenneth. Tailwind isn't going to help Stakataka at all with how slow it is, but you could set this up with either of these Pokemon, and Salaman's probably not too much danger here. Yveltal threatening a potential Z move, and now Kenneth can do some damage.
Well, it's going to be that Hyper Voice to kick it off for Kenneth's turn on this time. Does a little bit more damage to Landorus than it is going to do for the Incineroar, but it does enough that Yveltal is going to be able to get that Tailwind up, and now Kenneth has a lot of speed behind him. Hidden Power, though, from this Landorus is going to hit into the Salamence, and oh, not enough to knock it out. Incineroar now going for a Snarl. Is this going to be enough chip damage to take out that Salamence? It is! Connor gets the knockout onto Kenneth's Pokemon, and that is its advantage to kick off this Game 3.
Well, that's a big knockout. You know, you normally think Landorus is pretty safe against these two Pokemon, especially with, or Salamence is pretty safe against these Pokemon, rather, especially with the Intimidate out, but it turns out not to be so much. And now Kenneth's in a tough spot. He kind of has to bring out Kyogre here. It doesn't make any sense to bring out Stakataka to take on Landorus even after that Intimidate, and now we're in the same position we were in last game. You know, Kenneth has that Tailwind up, but he has to worry about Groudon switching in and negating the Water-type attacks of the Kyogre. The important difference this time is that, unlike last game, he still has the option of using a Z move, perhaps to try to call a Groudon switch in. On Connor's side now, you have to make a difficult decision. Do I switch Groudon in any way, try to guess which slot that Z move might go into, or do I try to play a little more safely, use U-turn instead? The danger, of course, is that neither of these Pokemon are going to survive a Water-type attack should Kyogre get one off, so it's tough to play too safely. Connor doesn't want to wind up in a situation where he only has two Pokemon left, and Kenneth can switch around to ensure control of the weather for the rest of the game. Whichever player goes down to two Pokemon here first, thus gaining control of the weather for the rest of the match, is probably going to be the one that loses. It's key to at least maintain three Pokemon so you can switch Kyogre and Groudon in and out.
Well, we're going to at least be able to see a switch in from Kenneth's side. Stakataka now coming in because it doesn't have the same pressures on that side of the field, but it is going to be Incineroar now switching out. And maybe this is going to be for that Yveltal read. Groudon is going to reset the weather here. Kyogre, what did Kenneth decide to do with it? Is it going to be a water move? Is it going to be the Ice Beam that we've seen previously on that Kyogre? Time will tell.
And Ice Beam would be enough to knock out Landorus, and we do see with the switch to Stakataka, not even trying to go for the Z move. Connor has a potential here to maybe get the positioning, but it is the Ice Beam. Which Pokemon will it hit?
It's going to be the Landorus. That is going to do enough to be able to knock it out. Super effective there on the Landorus, and now we have an even up of the Pokemon that are left.
It's a nice knockout for Kenneth, but I'm a little puzzled by the board state that he's wound up with here. It's a weird one. You don't see Xerneas switching into Stakataka very often, but it actually makes a lot of sense here. Even with the Tailwind, Stakataka is going to be the slowest Pokemon on the field, and with the control of the weather, it's pretty tough for Kenneth to really do anything to stop Groudon from targeting Stakataka, allowing Xerneas to get that Geomancy off. Really nice spot. Even though Kenneth scored that knockout there, I'm not sure giving the free switch to Connor actually helped him, though it's likely Landorus is going to use U-turn and get that switch anyway.
Well, we're going to have to see a forced switch on Kenneth's side, not with the U-turn equipped to Stakataka. So, we will have the Yveltal coming back out, and that's going to be a little bit of an interesting choice there, knowing that Xerneas is on the field.
Kind of has no choice. He's running out of options. He's going to dodge this Earth Power.
Yeah,
so that's a nice play, but there's
read.
nothing he can do to stop this Geomancy, and Connor's suddenly looking like he's got this one under wraps.
Time will tell, though, because in Pokemon, anything is possible, having some moves miss or having some, random generation here on your side. But Geomancy will be able to go off this turn without a hitch because the Power Herb that is equipped to that Xerneas, and Kenneth's going to have to prepare himself for some of this damage that Xerneas can do.
Yeah, I'm just not sure what he does here. He still has the option of that Z move, but with Xerneas resisting it, having the boosted special defense from Geomancy, he's not going to take very much damage. Xerneas can kind of just go on the offense here. I guess on Kenneth's side, you have got to find a way to knock out that Groudon. I don't think that Xerneas is going to allow that to happen, but if you could somehow get rid of Groudon, then Stakataka could deal with Xerneas. But it's going to be really clever to find an opportunity for that. Connor's done a great job to, again, kind of take advantage of that Tailwind by bringing Groudon in second, controlling the board.
Groudon is going to protect, hopefully to avoid taking an Ice Beam from the Kyogre or this Z move here. Z move now coming out from Kenneth's side, and it's going to be able to connect with either of the Pokemon that are on the field. But is it going to be enough to get a key knockout for Kenneth to get him a better position in this game? Black Hole Eclipse from the Yveltal. It will have a decent target on either side, but it is going to be the Groudon that just protected, so some of that damage from this Black Hole is going to get mitigated here. But it is enough. Wow, so that's going to be Connor's Groudon sticking around, but this Dazzling Gleam will fire back for that Yveltal, and a critical hit onto the Kyogre is going to take away more damage than Kenneth was prepared for.
Oh, it's so much damage. The Ice Beam here going to hit Xerneas. Unless he gets a critical hit, that's probably not going to do all that much. And yeah, wow, Xerneas takes that like a champ, and Connor now just 2 knockouts away from winning the tournament.
2 knockouts. We do have Stack Attacka, and with the speed that we have seen these Pokemon really play with, it's going to be really important for Kenneth to try to set up Trick Room to give him an advantage.
I just don't think there's any way. I mean, he made the right play in the last turn. You've got to go for that Z move. Groudon has to get knocked out there to take this game, but this could be check and mate for Connor. You know, Groudon just used the ground type move onto Stack Attacka. Xerneas attacked Kyogre, and I just know what you do for Kenneth. A really well played match by him. You know, he was very close, but I think Connor's probably got this one.
Well, this might be the very last one here. Xerneas going for a Dazzling Gleam. The Dazzling Gleam is going to pick up the knockout onto Kyogre, and you can see the handshake on stage. Seems to me that these players know who the champion is going to be of this match. Connor, congratulations for becoming the Junior North American International Champion.
A really excellent match, and you know he went down that first game, but he didn't let it phase him. You know, you gotta appreciate the backbone you have. Where it's gonna be tough to play at a big stage like this when you're so young. You probably remember, man, I lost last year. I'm down a game. But, he didn't let it get to him. He played 2 really excellent matches and able to do what he couldn't last year, become the champion. Fantastic match by both players.
Really excellent match. I mean, obviously they had to fight their way through so many Pokemon battles yesterday to be able to get to this point. Kenneth, I really hope that you are going to leave with your head held high, because that was an amazing match. You had some great plays on both sides, and I am so excited that that was the match that we got to see.
Yeah, I think both players put a performance to be proud of there. We saw Kenneth take a really impressive first game, and then Connor just made the right adjustments. He did a great job of adjusting. It's always one thing that's fun to kind of keep an eye on when you watch the youngest players, where it was kind of tough to understand, like, all right, well, why did I lose this game? What adjustments do I make? What Pokemon can I afford not to bring? I think Connor did a great job adjusting for game 2, and then his game plan just proved to be enough. Game 2, game 3 allowed that tailwind to go up, but I was able to maneuver in his Groudon at just the right time in both of those games to prevent Kenneth from really getting any damage in. Really excellently played match, and you can just see how strong these players are. Even though they're so young, they make such great decisions. They understand the game so well. It's really impressive.
Scott, these players honestly play the game better than I do, and the future looks so bright knowing that these players have a long time to be able to play within the competitive video game circuit. They are just juniors, so they get a chance to work their way through seniors and finally to masters, where the competition gets even tougher.
Yeah, it's kind of been fun. We've seen some former junior division champions kind of age up to the senior division, be really successful there, age up to the masters division, be really successful there. It's pretty fun for me, I guess, as one of the veterans of the community, I guess, just kind of watching the players develop.
Yeah.
And it's fun, too, to watch how their game progresses. I think these players both had really mature teams. Sometimes in these junior division finals, the players play really well, but they're kind of doing something with a little more personality, maybe, where I think this time, they're using the sort of teams that would be successful in the masters division. So maybe these players have, an even easier time than some of the past competitors at, succeeding once they move on to the upper age divisions.
Yeah, I definitely think the future is bright here for both Kenneth and Connor. They gave us an incredible show, but I want to hear more from Connor, so we're going to head over to Anna to hear exactly how excited he is about the fact that he just won.
All right, Connor, how does it feel to be the North American International Champion?
Good.
I would imagine it feels good. What did you have to do to get here? Did you have to practice?
Yes.
A lot?
Yes.
Did you play with a lot of people?
Yes.
I think that's a good way to become good at Pokemon. Is there anything else that people need to do to become good at Pokemon? You don't want to tell your secrets, huh? Because now you're a champion, you don't want anyone else to know?
I don't know.
Well, that's okay. Is there anybody out in the audience that you want to say hi to or thank you to while you're here?
My father.
Thank you, Father. All right, awesome. Connor, thank you so much. Congratulations. Let's hear it one more time for our North American International Champion. And guys, we'll be right back with more after this.
Welcome back to Columbus, Ohio for the North American International Championships. We've crowned some champions in the trading card game. We've crowned our first champion in the video game championships. There's 2 more champions to crown, and coming up next, of course, the seniors division will be having a champion crowned as well. I'm Adam Doricott, joined by Gabby Snyder for the last time this weekend. I've been pretty excited so far today. Nothing too... Keeping the heart rate up, I think, is how we go with it.
Yeah, I mean, I had a chance to watch some of the TCG finalists, and those seemed like a lot of fun. And the junior finals as well was just a really good showing, I think. You know, we saw some nice Trick Room versus Tailwind action, which is always one of my favorite matchups. And now we're going to get into something a little bit different for the seniors division. So let's take a look at where these seniors, how these seniors got to this final stage. They played all day yesterday. They did not have rounds on Friday, and they cut to a top 8. And then, as you can see, our 2 finalists, Kareem and Quentin, had a really tough road to get all the way to this final stage.
I mean, looking across this bracket, a number of players, we don't feature as many of the senior division games as, you know, we do with the Masters, but over the course of the year, there's been multiple international championships, and even after the past few years, we've been able to see the same names coming up at the top. These players really playing at the top of their game as long as they're in the division. You know, some of them want to make the most of it before they age up as well. So tough runs for both of our finalists, I think it's safe to say. Definitely playing against players in those top 8 matches, those top 4 matches, the single elimination matches that you have to be focused up on against some of the top opponents in their division.
Yeah, so that's enough looking at the bracket. Let's take a look at the finalists themselves. Anna, please take it away.
We are getting ready to start the final match for the Pokemon video game seniors division. Are you ready? Please get ready to welcome our players with me. First, from the United States, we have Quentin Colon. And also from the United States, Kareem Muakit. Welcome to the stage. Please shake hands. We can't wait to watch you play. Thank you guys for a great match in advance. And casters, take us away.
2 fantastic finalists here today in the senior division. 2 finalists with really good histories as well, playing to those top levels in many of the tournaments they go to. They're no strangers to these big stages. Good performances from both of them at the international championships level across the course of the year and previous years as well. So I'm sure we're in for an absolutely thrilling game between the 2 of them.
Yeah, I'm so excited. You know, I had the chance to talk to these trainers prior to their match, and they just seemed so excited and ready to go. And, you know, I can't blame them. I mean, you've played all day yesterday. You know, some really tough opponents. We had several previous international champions actually make top 8 here in Columbus, Ohio. And to, you know, have those victories behind you and just, you know, have that momentum coming into Championship Sunday today. I think these trainers are ready and raring to go.
Yeah, when you really jam in those games, every game in the afternoon, after your Swiss rounds, you know, they have all of it in one day. It's a compacted tournament, so you've got to be on the ball every single round. You can't be dropping rounds early.
I know.
And you've got to be consistent towards the end of the day. I think that will make some of these trainers so ready when they age up into the Masters division. It's a big ask. Obviously, some trainers do fantastically well at it because they've been playing on the same level, that same pedigree as the Masters. They may be in a separate division, but they could definitely take on trainers from those older divisions with absolute ease.
Yeah, and a lot of the strategies and the teams I think you're going to be seeing, you know, from these juniors, from these seniors, both here this weekend and at the World Championships in August are going to be really familiar. You know, I think that one of the awesome things about the senior division is that they are, like you said, so close to the Masters division in terms of their training, in terms of the Pokemon and the strategies they run. A lot of times we see trainers who do well at the international or worlds level when they age up into the Masters division just keep performing at that high caliber, which is great. It's a lot of fun. I wish I had that kind of training when I was, you know, getting ready to compete in the Masters division for the first time.
I definitely got nothing of that sort.
I know, right?
It was really the trial by fire, I guess. But both of them, as we mentioned, no strangers to these big stages. They know exactly what they're going to be doing. I think both of them looking for that bigger performance. You know, we can start taking a quick look at our players, and quite honestly, their accomplishments are insane. We do have them fill out and talk a little bit to their accomplishments. And these players requiring probably an extra sheet of paper if they were going to be honest about them. We forced them to be modest by limiting what they can cover.
I mean, if you're talking about the trainers on stage, especially Quentin, 6-time regional champion in the last year alone, I think is something that he needs a couple sheets of paper to be able to fill out. He also got top 4 at the European International Championships and the Latin American International Championships in this year, which I think is crazy. He's made day 2 of Worlds, both in 2017 and 2018. Definitely going to get the invite for that this year because he's at the top of the leaderboard for championship points as a senior, which again is just such an incredible accomplishment. Quentin could qualify for the World Championships a couple times over even with all the championship points he has.
That's definitely not a bad thing, but as you mentioned a little bit, Quentin is kind of one of those players that's been doing so well at regionals, and the top 4s at the European and Latin America International Championships, probably one of those he wants to turn into a win, a complete victory. Certainly not a bad thing to be going top 4, but now he's been afforded the opportunity to convert one of those into a win. He's already gone 1 step further, so while you're doing that, why not go 2 steps further and truly make a mark on the seniors division? It's going to be one of those games, a whole lot of pressure on it. It's been a really good run for him. A fantastic year, as you mentioned so far. So one of those players I'll be very much excited to see how he can perform. He was the 6th seed coming into this top cut bracket. And being able to, it is the lower half of the bracket, but being able to take wins off those opponents in the higher portion of the bracket, a fantastic performance from him there.
And the Pokemon he'll be running in today's finals are Kyogre, Crobat, Incineroar, Ferrothorn, Tapu Koko, and that Rayquaza. So again, that Kyogre and Rayquaza team that also made the finals in the Masters division. Some different Pokemon, but still a very solid strategy. Kareem, on the other hand, this is actually his first time being featured on a stream at all. He told me he was able to play on one of the TV side screens we have in the hall the other day, and he was really excited that he won. So I think he's looking to repeat that win here now that he's on, the big stage.
Yeah, Kareem's had a really good year as well. I mean, while 6 of the regionals have gone over to Quentin, he's managed to pick up 2 of the remaining ones. So making sure he's also a multiple regional champion in this year, playing very well in those tournaments, of course. And the European International Championships, he was in the top 8. So kind of 1 step behind Quentin in that one. Still 2 trainers who are very, very closely matched. And I think that's going to make for a fantastic finals.
And what's really interesting is that these trainers have not played each other here yet. They were not matched up in Swiss, and obviously they weren't matched up in Top Cut. So I'm sure they have a little bit of information about the others' teams going into things. Kareem's team in particular, I think, is really interesting with that Xerneas, the Lunala, Smeargle, Lucario, which is, I don't think, a Pokemon we've seen on stream at all this weekend yet. Tapu Lele and Incineroar. It's going to be a really interesting match because only Quentin has one of those primal Pokemon that brings with it the weather. He technically has 2 if the Rayquaza chooses to Mega Evolve in his game. So Kareem is going to be forced, I think, to accept whatever weather that Quentin puts on the field and really rely on that Xerneas on his side to deal that big damage and hopefully, keep the Kyogre and Rayquaza at bay.
I'll be curious to see if we see the Lucario. I think many people, looking at the typing of Lucario, may try and use it.
Right?
Yeah, and the big use for it there is trying to hit the Xerneas. Obviously, you have to be careful because of the typing. The fighting doesn't help, but because you're Steel type, you're in a good position. I wonder if this is going to be the selection. Of course, of fighting type moves could be rather useful against something like the Incineroar, something like the Ferrothorn. And I'll be curious to see if one of those very niche picks, one of those exciting and interesting picks that we love to see up here, is going to make an impact in this finals.
Well, it's interesting looking at Kareem's team as well. Quentin does have the option for something like a Tailwind from that Crobat on his side of the field. Kareem's Lunala is probably the Pokemon that will go for speed control on his side of the field. And just looking how that Lunala matches up against Quentin's team, it's going to be taking a lot of damage. It doesn't have much utility, I think, in terms of being able to deal big damage with its own attacks. And it's only going to take something like that Incineroar from Quentin's side of the field to sort of keep Lunala at bay. So, you know, looking at Kareem's team, looking at how it's built, you know, I like how he has that Smeargle, that Incineroar, that Tapu Lele to sort of try and buy that Xerneas time to go for something like that Geomancy we've seen all throughout the weekend and the format and the year. But I think he's going to have a difficult time trying to protect it. And I'm really curious to see if he's going to be playing it a little bit slower, maybe not going for that Geomancy right away, like we've seen other trainers do, in hopes that when Xerneas does hit the field with the Geomancy, all of Quentin's counters have been removed.
Yeah, well, the one thing I'd be curious to see from Quentin's side is how the Crobat is going to be executed as well. The Crobat can put in a whole lot of work against a number of Pokemon on Kareem's team, and there it is, right in the lead, alongside the Tapu Koko, while Kareem opts to lead with Tapu Lele and Lunala. We have, of course, had the terrains exchanged by both of the Tapu Koko and Tapu Lele. Tapu Lele's activating first and then being replaced, the Electric Surge bringing out Electric Terrain, completely giving up information on the item being held by Kareem's Tapu Lele. In this instance, the Choice Scarf will apply a lot of offensive pressure, but it's not going to be applying that pressure in its terrain of choice. Of course, we do have both of the Tailwind setters on the field here, and then we're going to see exactly how they shape up. Kareem's just going for it, though, with no terrain in play, straight after the Crobat, bringing it down to the Focus Sash. Tapu Koko, the next one to fire back, heading towards Lunala with a Volt Switch. Not much damage there, but giving Quentin some time to reposition.
And that's exactly what he needs. Fortunately for him, that Crobat was holding a Focus Sash, so it was not knocked out in one hit by that Tapu Lele. Knowing that he's brought the Ferrothorn with him and can threaten that Tapu Lele with something like a Gyro Ball, I think is going to be really important as these trainers just go to match Tailwinds.
Yeah, I think that's a safe move for both of these trainers. You don't want to let your opponent get Tailwind up completely unopposed and then be caught the next turn as you're desperately trying to set yours up and just get caught by these big hits. The Tapu Lele still applying a lot of pressure to this Crobat, pretty much giving it no option to make any more moves, not trying to weave in anything fancy like a Taunt. Really going to limit his options there. So this Ferrothorn's probably going to be in a position this turn where it needs to do as much as possible. Against the Tapu Lele, it could do an absolute number on it, but we'll see if he's going to let that happen. Kareem, not a fan of that idea in the slightest.
And I like the fact that he's brought that Lucario with him, because that Ferrothorn, I think, is so threatening to his team, you know, knowing that it is going to centralize around the Xerneas. Yes, it takes about half of its health on the switch from that Super Fang, but overall, I think a great adjustment and should be able to pick up the knockout on that Ferrothorn pretty easily the next turn.
Yeah, that Lucario coming in, though, taking the Super Van, probably got more than it bargained for. There wasn't the safest switch available for it. And that means as soon as it comes in, the Gyro Ball from this Ferrothorn immediately picking up the knockout. And even though they've traded 1-for-1, I think the Pokemon that Quentin has got knocked out is not as valuable to his offensive pressure as the one on Kareem's side of the field.
Assuming that the Xerneas is that last Pokemon on Kareem's side of the field, it's going to be up to this Lunala and Tapu Lele to figure out how to remove this Ferrothorn from the field. You know, looking at their typing, looking at their potential moves, I mean, Lunala could go for something like a super powerful Z move like we've seen many Lunala do, but we don't know what item it's holding yet. We don't even know if that's possible. Tapu Lele does get access to some interesting type coverage moves, but, you know, most of them really are just running, you know, Psychic Moonblast and then a couple other attacks. So if Kareem has something that can hit that Ferrothorn super effectively, I think he has to reveal it now. Otherwise, he's forced to double into that slot, leaving Tapu Koko free to target down whichever Pokemon it wants and just giving Quentin some great momentum moving forwards into the latter part of this game.
I think the next turns are going to be so important in how do you deal with Ferrothorn. It's on the field there, it's just threatening with Gyro Ball. This Tapu Lele is not going to appreciate it. It's anywhere near safe from that. It's going to start just trying to wear it down now. The Moonblast not doing too much. Gets a special attack drop, not really what you're looking for. Tapu Koko given the opportunity in its terrain of choice once again. Lunala caught with the paralysis from that Thunderbolt, but the Z move coming through. That's going to make sure that we're getting a hit. And Kareem needs a lot of value out of this one.
Menacing Moonraze Maelstrom, Lunala's signature move, Z move of choice. Certainly one of the most powerful Z moves, I think, in the format right now. If anything can take down this Ferrothorn from Kareem's side of the field, you think it has to be the Z move, but Ferrothorn, such a bulky Pokemon, only took a little bit of chip damage from that Moonblast. You know, I think it's a very tall ask for this to knock out, and we'll see how this plays out.
That chip damage could be so important. Of course, Tapu Lele having to lock into a move because of its Choice Scarf. We'll see if it was enough for it to get there. It's not close. Still a good little chunk left on this Ferrothorn. And there's the Gyro Ball in retaliation. Tapu Lele immediately felled, and Quentin now in a clear Pokemon advantage with 3 remaining to Kareem's 2.
In Kareem's favor, you know, if that Tapu Lele were to go for a Psychic type attack while the Psychic Terrain was still up, that might have been the little extra bit of chip damage it needs to knock out the Ferrothorn for a Game 2 or Game 3. It is within KO range for something from that Xerneas, maybe a Moonblast if it can connect, but that Tapu Koko still at full health, still able to attack, and because the Lunala is paralyzed, you know, it's not going to be able to move prior to that Ferrothorn anymore. It's such a tough position. You know, Kareem really wants to protect that Xerneas, but I think he's already taken too much damage.
Well, Quentin's decided that now is the time to pull out the Z move of his own. See if he can get a little more value out of his, maybe trying to pick up a knockout that way, as Tapu Koko revealing the Fairium Z, something that's been very, very popular here at the North American International Championships. Twinkle Tackle, the Z move of choice, and the Lunala is going to be caught by that one. Tapu Koko just trying to do a little bit more than those Thunderbolts, definitely getting more as he does knock the Lunala out. Kareem left with just the Xerneas on the field, and that is now left dazzling, gleaming. Not enough for a knockout on either of them, even with the critical hit. And Ferrothorn just retaliating as it does with the Gyro Ball for its 3rd knockout of the game.
I can see why Kareem went for the Dazzling Gleam over that single target Moonblast. I think he wanted to try and knock out that Ferrothorn while getting enough chip damage onto that Tapu Koko so that the Moonblast or whatever follow-up attack the next turn would have a likelihood of knocking out. Unfortunately for him, just fell short of dealing the damage he needed to knock out that Ferrothorn. And he didn't even get to see what Quentin's last Pokemon was, which I think is very interesting. You know, that Ferrothorn, just such a huge threat. You know, I think he has to play a lot safer. Maybe bring the Lucario and the Incineroar, or just bring the Incineroar over the Lucario on his side of the field so that he has an answer to that Ferrothorn that won't get knocked out by something like that Gyro Ball on the switch-in.
I think as well, you mentioned it's an interesting point that he didn't see the last Pokemon from Quentin. Considering the 3 Pokemon he did see, none of them were the restricted Pokemon. So knowing if he's decided to go Rayquaza or Kyogre in the back could help out. You know, if he gets a little bit further down the line in this game, a little bit closer to the mark, knowing what's in the back may help him with some of that decision making. Obviously, if it's something like Rayquaza, you maybe want to be a little more conservative with the Tapu Lele. And I think he did the right thing in that game, removing it as soon as he saw that Ferrothorn. Certainly interesting, but that Lucario just punished on the way in, immediately knocked out. And such a key part of beating this Ferrothorn was removed from play on the way in. That's something he's going to have to be a lot more careful of if he wants to level up this set.
Yeah, unfortunately for Lucario, you know, it's a very powerful Pokemon in terms of its physical attack stat. It's also known to be fairly fast, but is not on the bulky side. So it's not the Pokemon that you want to be switching in on situations like that. You really want it out on the field in a way that leaves it, you know, unattacked, unharmed. And in Kareem's case, I don't think Quentin gave him that opportunity. You know, a lot of trainers, when they do want to switch out a Pokemon to guarantee sort of a safe entry to the field, will maybe go for like a slow U-turn or otherwise use something coverage like Fake Out to, you know, make sure that whatever would be targeting that slot cannot target that slot. And Kareem just doesn't have those options on his team, at least from what we've seen. You know, we know that Incineroar usually carries Fake Out. Smeargle usually carries Fake Out, but those are adjustments that Kareem will have to reveal going into this game too.
We'll see exactly what he goes for. I think Smeargle would be interesting, but I don't know about it with the Crobat as so easily revealed. Looks like we're going to be getting the same leads in this game. Crobat and Tapu Koko for Quentin, Tapu Lele and the Lunala for Kareem. Exactly the same interaction here. Psychic Terrain replaced by Electric Terrain through those Surge abilities. And you've got to wonder, is there any adaptation that Kareem can make from this lead? He knows that he's not going to be able to knock out the Crobat because of the Focus Sash. but maybe finding some damage on the Tapu Koko a little bit earlier would be more interesting for him. He certainly has to weigh it up, but there's no real way he can stop the Tailwind from Quentin's side.
Yeah, Kareem knows that the Crobat is going to be a guaranteed 2-hit knockout because we did see the reveal of the Focus Sash earlier, and I liked what you just said about maybe targeting down that Tapu Koko a bit earlier. Crobat only had Super Fang in terms of an attack from what we've seen, and that always does half your damage, or you could just taunt it and stop the Tailwind. That works too.
Yeah, Kareem revealing his little secret there is going to be the taunt on the Choice Scarf carrying Tapu Lele. So maybe forced to switch out the next turn, but Crobat as well in a similar position. The Moongeist Beam, good amount of damage to Crobat, doesn't bring it down to its Focus Sash, but that turn's worked really well for Kareem, especially with Tapu Koko on Quentin's side protecting.
Unfortunately, though, he has to switch out his Tapu Lele because he's now Choice Scarfed into Taunt. I mean, I guess you could taunt the Tapu Koko and stop it from protecting any further, but, you know, I think that you'd be better off preserving that Tapu Lele forever, for later, bringing back the terrain, and then, you know, being able to use that super powerful Psychic to deal big damage later on.
One thing that is interesting, though, with Crobat taunted and it being forced to Super Fang, would be curious to see exactly if he switches it out, is there another way around it? Tapu Lele's staying in and trying his luck here. I'll be curious to see, you know, Crobat maybe just trying to catch whatever was going to switch for that Tapu Lele, but in this case it doesn't leave the field and it's just there. The only downside to that play is exactly what we're seeing now. Kareem is the one getting up the Tailwind, and that's going to make things a whole lot easier for him if things do have to switch.
I think, again, I think Tapu Lele really has to switch. I like how he waited that turn, maybe to guarantee the Tailwind so that the Lunala would be faster than the Crobat and could knock it out before it connects something like that Super Fang with whatever comes in for the Tapu Lele. So now that that's been done, you know, switch out the Tapu Lele, maybe send in the Lucario if that's what you have in the back, or whatever Pokemon can deal some big damage to this Tapu Koko. You also have the option of using that Z move as well in a future turn if that's how you want to take it down.
This looks like Lucario's second attempt at switching in for the Tapu Lele. Could be a whole lot safer, and with Crobat knowing that it may just get caught by the Lunala on the other side of the field, decides to keep it safe. Kareem, though, has determined that he wants a little more damage than the original Moongeist Beam. And for him, it's going to be the menacing Moonraze Maelstrom, trying to get a whole lot more damage down a little bit earlier in the game this time.
You have to imagine this is going to connect with that Tapu Koko, given how Moongeist Beam did over 50% of damage to Crobat's health. And, you know, this might threaten a knockout even. It's such a powerful Z move. Lunala is, I think, one of the most powerful Pokemon in terms of offensive power in the Ultra metagame. And, you know, it literally brings the power of space and the moon and everything and just crashes it into that Tapu Koko. It's a knockout.
Tapu Koko not able to take those hits. Not built as the most sturdy Pokemon around. And Kareem's put himself in such a fantastic position now. Not only has he got an unopposed Tailwind up, Quentin, of course, does have the option to try and set one up, but it's not going to be quite this turn. He has got his Lucario in the face of this Ferrothorn, and it didn't get caught and completely knocked out on the way in. So a lot better of positioning for Kareem here. And he does have the Pokemon advantage as well. We do finally see what Quentin's fourth Pokemon is going to be in this team selection. Rayquaza, his choice of restricted Pokemon.
Rayquaza brings with it that Dragon Ascent. It's a flying type move. Lucario will not appreciate that whatsoever. To Kareem's benefit, you know, the Tapu Lele is safe in the back of its party. We saw, you know, it go for some really powerful attacks in the previous turn. And, you know, after a Dragon Ascent, Rayquaza's defenses are going to be weakened by one stage, which means, you know, anything Tapu Lele throws at it will most likely be able to knock it out, and it won't even be able to extreme speed because of the psychic terrain. So Kareem's in a good position once that Tapu Lele comes out on the field against this Rayquaza. I think his challenge for this turn is to be able to remove the Ferrothorn from the field before that's forced to happen.
Well, we'll see if Lucario is afforded the opportunity to do that. It's first going to have to take this extreme speed from Rayquaza. Takes that very, very well because of its steel typing. And Lucario just decides to Meteor Mash, probably believing Ferrothorn was going to protect. Does connect and land on that Rayquaza. Follow-up attack, the Moongeist Beam from the Lunala. Definitely putting the pressure down as Rayquaza removed as quickly as it arrived. Extreme speed no longer an option, nor a big hit. Ferrothorn will be allowed to Gyro Ball, this time heading towards the Mega Lucario, and it's just not enough for a knockout without that previous Super Fang damage.
Yeah, it looks like Lucario was just short of, or just ahead of the health that it needed to be to remain on the field. So extreme speed just not quite covering it from that Rayquaza. Quentin's down to his last 2 Pokemon, and I mean, to Crobat's benefit, it should have an opportunity here to go for something like that Tailwind before it gets knocked out, but it's not going to do much. You know, Ferrothorn is not a speed Pokemon, to say something usually said about another Pokemon. At this point, the best thing that this Crobat can do, I think, is try and hang around on the field long enough to make a difference in the health of Kareem's Pokemon with that Super Fang.
It's really difficult, though, because right now, Super Fang may help you slowly work down Lucario. There's not even going to be any protection from Quentin this turn. The Ferrothorn's just going to receive the close combat. The Iron Barbs
I mean, that's chip damage. That's important to know, I think, for, you know, future turns.
Not enough. Lucario is still standing. And Crobat now completely unable to do anything in this game. It's not even going to be afforded the opportunity to try and fight back as Kareem wraps this game up 4-0 in the Pokemon count. This time, Kareem being a little more conservative and not revealing his last one, as the series is tied up 1-1, and we'll be moving on to Game 3 here in the senior finals.
Just a great adjustment made by Kareem. I really liked how he played that game. You know, I think he was very careful about that Tapu Lele, and that's exactly what we were saying. You know, he found an opening for the Lucario to enter the field. It was able to attack and get the knockouts it needed, and it was able to knock out that Ferrothorn before it caused too much trouble, and I think that's why he was able to take such a decisive victory. I don't think Quentin's going to give him that opportunity, though, going into Game 3, because, again, the major difference between Games 1 and 2 was that Lucario. So if Quentin's able to either, you know, predict and catch that Lucario in on the switch like he did in Game 1, or otherwise, you know, be able to take it down before it can really threaten his team going into you know, the rest of this game, I think he's going to be in a great spot to sort of win that 3rd game. But what a close match between both these trainers.
Quentin's Crobat is really being put in a tough position here, because in Game 1, it did fantastically. It landed the Super Fang, which caused Lucario to be easily knocked out by Gyro Ball. Of course, it matched the Tailwind from Kareem's Lunala, and that's important. But in Game 2, Kareem has shown he has a very clear and concise answer to it. He played around it very, very well with the Taunt. He then didn't let it Super Fang something on the way in, biding his time, setting up the Tailwind of his own. So if I'm Quentin here, I'd be in a position where you need and want to bring that Crobat to make sure you can set up a Tailwind. But you can't afford to bring it if it's just going to get shut down that easily.
I know.
Both trainers taking their time on this one. One game to decide who will be your international champion in the seniors division today.
Maybe if Quentin can find a way to deal some big damage and otherwise stop that Lunala from using Tailwind, or just, you know, wait that Tailwind out, as we've seen some other trainers do when sort of playing the speed control game, he'd be able to maneuver without that Crobat. But for now, you know, it's going to stick with that same lead we've seen, the Crobat and the Tapu Koko. It looks like no adjustments from either of these trainers as we start this game.
Well, we say that, but there could be adjustments in how they play. I think that's very important to note, is once you've shown something like the Taunt on Tapu Lele, then you're relying on Quentin to make a play, and then you need to capitalize off that. But in the same vein, it's all about seeing what your opponent's going to do and seeing if you can really read 1 or 2 turns ahead, make that prediction, see if they're going to go for it, and if you can weave in something unexpected, you can very quickly turn the tides of battle and make an advantage here. Tapu Koko really sort of in an interesting position. It comes in mainly to keep the terrain in Quentin's favor, but then it struggles to deal huge damage, and that's something that he's going to have to think about. Looks like we're going back to Game 2 on this one, as Taunt lands on Quentin's Crobat. He does try and Tailwind, doesn't get it, and Volt Switch coming through. A little bit of damage on Lunala, but again, similar to Game 1, it allows him to reposition the board a little bit.
It does, and I think this is the perfect opportunity for that Ferrothorn to make an appearance, because as we've seen in past games, it's not threatened by the Tapu Lele, it's not really threatened by this Lunala, and it can really take the Tapu Lele out before it's able to do too much damage. So this is almost forcing Kareem to remove it from the field and put that Lucario, or maybe even that Xerneas, depending on what his last Pokemon is, in jeopardy.
Well, the Ferrothorn does come back in for the Tapu Koko. That's that's the position that he put himself in Game 1, which I think was very nice for him, you know, being able to deal with that Tapu Lele, especially now, similarly to Game number 2, he's stuck in there taunting.
Yep.
If he can make that call once again, try and land Super Fang and something, follow up like gyro ball. Then catching that Lucario on the way in would very quickly change things, even though he doesn't have Tailwind in play. Of course, Crobat switching out would be something that Kareem could capitalize on. A big menacing Moonraze Railstrom onto whatever comes into that slot would be a real issue. It looks like Kareem, though, is executing the exact same strategy as he is in game number 2, waiting a turn before you taunt something, trying to catch whatever's coming in Crobat's place, but not getting there.
And I think that's okay. I mean, the Lucario was so key to his strategy in game 2, you know, playing it safe. Yes, he does lose the Tapu Lele here, but Lucario can come in for free. It's going to be faster, and Lunala can take care of that Crobat and remove the Super Fang from the field before the combination of the Super Fang and the Gyro Ball will knock it out.
Yeah, getting the knockout big there for Quentin does help out, does make sure that he's keeping up in the Pokemon count. But as you say, the Tailwind is up, and realistically, Kareem can knock both of these Pokemon out. If Quentin is to start switching around, that could be fine, but then Kareem's still in a position with a little bit more of the Tailwind to use to try and find that advantage and keep going. So even if one attack lands and it's not very effective, he's then afforded the chance to change it up for the next turn, still moving first. Of course, Ferrothorn not in the best position facing down this Lucario, but you've got to be so careful when you switch into an offensive powerhouse like that.
And you almost have to wonder if this Ferrothorn is going to protect this turn so that it doesn't take damage from the Lucario. You know, yes, Crobat is probably going to be knocked out, but then you can at least send in that Tapu Koko relatively unthreatened, you know, maybe wait out the end of this Tailwind. I think it's very interesting that the Tapu Koko switched in here. Yes, it's a very, you know, safe play. I don't think it's going to be taking a lot of damage from a fighting type move thanks to its fairy typing, but you know, protect from that Ferrothorn would have accomplished the same thing. So might be an interesting thing to note as we watch the rest of this game play out.
Yeah, Lucario absolutely going for it there. Landing a close combat
so
on Tapu Koko. Not very effective, but it really, really hurt. Lucario's fences are dropped, of course, as a side effect of close combat. But that's really going to be it for the turn. We do see the Lunala heading on up for a Moongeist Beam. I think that switch not the safest at all. Kareem calling it so well there. He knows that this Crobat's going to be so limited in its options. And Kareem taking that Tapu Koko out on the switch in, just covering those bases, saying, okay, I'll try and close combat the Ferrothorn. If you do switch it out, I'll make sure that whatever comes in gets caught short in those regards. Maybe forcing now Quentin to reveal his 4th Pokemon once again. And then we're going to be in an interesting position. Of course, Quentin Crobat does now have the ability to start tailwinding again, and things could get real nasty in that regard.
The Rayquaza as well could go for an extreme speed on that Lucario, maybe try and deal some damage that way. It is a really interesting spot. Like you said, that Crobat's taunt has worn out, and it can start being you know, more supportive, and it can do what it wants to do again. Kareem can't leave it on the field as a result. You know, if it were to get a Tailwind up this late on in the game, it's most likely that Tailwind would persist until the end of the game, and then this Rayquaza will be able to deal so much more damage because it won't have to worry about, you know, taking attacks from this Lunala or this Lucario first. You know, Quentin just lost his Pokemon that knew the Z move, and he didn't get to use it. Kareem still has his Z move available. Maybe this is one of those turns where you just go for the Z move, go for the KO on the Crobat, and then, you know, once everything's said and done, you have an opportunity to sort of adjust and take things from there.
Well, Kareem getting that Xerneas in, finally revealing that's going to be his last Pokemon there, the Lucario, trying to save itself for later. The Mega Evolution coming through on Rayquaza. No real surprises there. There's no Weather War to winning. You don't need to hold the potential Delta Stream. So you may as well just Mega Evolve it and get going in those regards. Obviously, Delta Stream is in play, but I don't think it's going to be too relevant over the course of this game. Rayquaza will Extreme Speed, heading towards that Xerneas. Not a real problem here, as menacing Moonmaze Railstrom finally used by Kareem in this game, looking for a knockout to carve out that Pokemon advantage numerically once again.
And keeping that Mega Lucario safe so that when the Ferrothorn is forced back out onto the field, it can easily use that close combat to get a knockout.
Yeah, well, getting it out of the field there, very smart. Xerneas took a good amount of damage on the way in from Extreme Speed for its troubles, but I don't think that that's going to be too terrifying here. Rayquaza taken through the wormhole and probably going to be taking a lot of damage as well. Lunala's well known for being able to just take things and knock them out very quickly. Of course, Kareem really needs this Rayquaza to be removed from play. He absolutely gets it. No concern there. Kareem looking very comfortable. The strong winds have dissipated, but there's a tailwind to replace them. So still windy from Quentin's side of the field, but certainly in a very different position. The Tailwind over on Kareem's side has expired, but Lunala's still in a very good position to just set one up if he decides that's the way to play the game.
And Crobat can't even attack that Lunala before it will have a chance to move because Super Fang is a normal type move.
Yeah, you can't hit Lunala with the Super Fang. So you can just protect the Xerneas or, maybe buy a little bit of time that way. Of course, Crobat will have the option to try and shut down that Xerneas, but there comes a point where Kareem really doesn't need the Xerneas. He could just try and take the Crobat out with something simple. Just really go for it. And all he needs to do is make sure that Lucario comes in safely to close combat Ferrothorn.
I think he still needs the Xerneas, but I don't think he needs the Geomancy. And I think that's a distinction that I want to make. He needs to be able to deal some damage to that Crobat this turn. Whether or not that's through the Lunala or the Xerneas or both, I think is his call.
Well, he tried to call the Lucario switch in there. Not going to get it as Lunala taking nothing from that Super Fang. A little Dazzling Gleam there, not too much either way. Lunala just Moongeist beaming. I think we know what Kareem's strategy is. He just wants to start knocking things out. The Dazzling Gleam damage, not too important there, but at least it's something, a little bit of chip damage. It's certainly one way to deal with Ferrothorn. It's going to reveal the knockoff, and Lunala not belled by that at all. Still, Ferrothorn 1v3, doing very small amounts of damage.
Just holding on long enough to get one more Moongeist Beam to target in this Ferrothorn, maybe two if Quentin decides to go for the knockout on the Xerneas this turn. But, this Ferrothorn's in a really tough spot. Maybe if it were, if it knew Leech Seed and had leftovers and could play like that slow game that we've seen a lot of Ferrothorn do in past formats, Quentin might have a chance. But, this Ferrothorn, knowing knockoff, I think is something very unique. We didn't see the leftovers activate either, so I don't think this Ferrothorn really has what it takes to play the long game. And yes, it's going to be able to score a knockout again this turn. Really, its pick of a knockout. But it is going to be taking damage from both these Pokemon, and it's just going to be clearing the way for that Lucario to come through.
Yeah, a little bit of damage coming through from the Moonblast of Xerneas there. Not enough to really be threatening a knockout. Moongeist Beam following up, still not enough there at all. Really trying to get a little bit down at a time. And the Bulldoze in retaliation, the last move revealed of this Ferrothorn's moveset, will pick the knockout up on Rayquaza. And, of course, put something like that Xerneas a little bit lower on the speed tier. Do remember that Quentin has Tailwind in play. This Ferrothorn, not known for its speed, certainly in an interesting position. But it's really not going to appreciate facing down this Lucario. The past couple of turns, the Kareem has just been doing little bits of damage. Those little bits of damage certainly add up, but this Lucario is going to be able to do a whole lot more damage.
I mean, we saw in Game 2 how much that close combat did to that Ferrothorn, so really, as long as it's able to connect this turn, I think Kareem is going to be in a very, very good spot, and our next national champion.
Yeah, Kareem will be, with this close combat, your North American international champion for the seniors division. Quentin putting up a fantastic fight, but after losing Game 1, Kareem bouncing back in Games 2 and 3 to become the second champion crowned here today in the Video Game Championships.
Yeah, and, congratulations. I really loved his adjustment in play style from Games 1 to Games 2 and 3, where he was keeping that Mega Lucario safe so that it could knock out that Ferrothorn when it was revealed on Quentin's side of the field. If you think about it, that Ferrothorn was very central to Quentin's strategy in how he sort of played through Kareem's team. And, yes, Mega Lucario is a bulky Pokemon, and yes, it was sort of hard to keep safe, but Kareem just, making the switches where he needed to, letting that Tapu Lele take some of those Super Fangs so that the Mega Lucario could come in safe and do what it needed to do to win him the championship title.
Well, this set was really the tale of three Lucarios, right? In game number 1, it got caught on the way in, it got caught with Super Fang and Gyro Ball and was not able to do anything at all. In games 2 and 3, where he got it in a safer fashion, then he was able to win the game. And that really, the deciding factor, I think, in this set, very simply, if he had the answer to Ferrothorn available to him, then he was able to win the game. And it's so difficult to kind of protect a Pokemon like that. And one of those plays that, as we talked about at the top of the kind of round, you want to make these very smart, very informed decisions that Masters divisions players would be making. And leaving your Tapu Lele in, you know, for waiting for it to get knocked out or waiting for Tailwind to go up first, such a smart play by Kareem, showing his knowledge of the game and exactly how his team operates to the maximum and to the highest level.
I mean, shout outs to Quentin too. You know, I really loved how he was able to maneuver his Ferrothorn and how he moved his team around throughout that game. You know, Ferrothorn is one of those Pokemon, I think, that, you know, has been around in so many different formats, and it's just so scary because of its amazing typing. You know, he had that Primal Kyogre on his team to protect it from super effective fire type moves, but it was just Mega Lucario, you know, Mega Fighting type Pokemon seem to be a nice theme that we have going on here this weekend. They're just so powerful. And I'm really excited to see how the metagame is going to take this into account as we move closer and closer to the World Championships.
I'm sure that's going to be an adaptation that a lot of people are thinking about. The Mega Pokemon is usually 1 or 2 slots on your team, and it becomes a little bit of something you have to think about as you're preparing your team for a big event like this.
Yeah, so let's hear from your new 2019 North American International Champion, Kareem. Anna, please take it away.
Kareem, how does it feel to hear yourself called the North American International Champion?
It feels unreal because, you know, with every tournament that passes by, I always see the people who are consistently at the top, and I always think, you know, when am I going to get my chance? And today I did get my chance.
You certainly did. What do you think that you invested this year that brought you to this moment? What have you done to become the Pokemon trainer you are today?
Well, after my 2018 season, where I only went to a few regionals and then went to Worlds on a whim, I kind of realized that this year would be, I really want to give it my all, because this would be my last year in the seniors division. And, you know, I want to see how much I can accomplish, given my mindset.
I see that there are a lot of people cheering you on out here. Is there anyone you want to say hi to or thank you to?
You know, shout outs first and foremost. Well, he's not here now, but shout outs to my dad for taking me here. And shout outs to the groups that I practice with, like C9 Colt. You know, there's James and Carson and Joseph in the crowd and a lot of other people. And I love them so much, and they help me so much.
Thank you so much for showing us such a great game. Congratulations. Let's hear it one more time for your champion. And we will be right back with more from the Pokemon 2019 North American International Championship right after this. From the 2019 North American International Championship.
Welcome back, everybody, to the 2019 Pokemon North American International Championships. We've already crowned champions in the trading card game. We've crowned 2 of 3 champions here in the video game, but there's still one more match to come. My name is Dui Ha. Joining me at the desk right now is, of course, the one and only Aaron Zhang, and we are almost ready here to present to you the Masters Division Championship match.
The very, very last match of this tournament, and one that will certainly be quite exciting. We have truly a very dynamic matchup for you guys, featuring 2 amazing players who have fought through such a competitive field throughout the course of this tournament.
Absolutely. They've played through 2 days of Swiss competition and have fought all the way through to the finals here in a very difficult bracket. You know, everybody in that top 8 bracket was actually a big threat. Of course, we have Graham Amity hailing from Australia, having to defeat Melvin Kay, who they played 2 times in Swiss already. Finally, Graham getting the upper hand and moving on past Melvin. Of course, he had face off against Jonathan Evans over in the semifinals. Of course, that was actually a great match as well. Of course, over on the other side of the bracket, well, no stranger to finals at all. Wolf Glick advanced over Flavio Del Pidio, and of course, had that exciting set over Jean-Paul Lopez Buiza in the last semifinal match that we saw yesterday. So there is just so much.
Yeah, so exciting here, featuring one of the game's most seasoned veterans in Wolfie, having won 5 regional championships, 2 national championships. This is his first international championship finals, and he's looking to take this title. If he does, then he'll actually be the only player in the game to have won one of every tournament from regionals, nationals, internationals, and worlds in the Masters division. So that's an accomplishment that no one else really has been able to even fight for. And now Wolfie does have that opportunity. But of course, his opponent, Graham, using one of the most innovative teams we've seen throughout the entire course of this format, and definitely this tournament, rocking that Mega Medicham.
Yeah, and it's going to be a tough matchup for both players. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at this matchup.
My name is Wolf Glick, and I live in Washington, D.C.
Hi, I'm Graham, and I'm from Australia.
This weekend, I came in with one goal, and that was to finish in the top 8 of overall points by the end of the tournament.
To take the title, you know, here in America, after lots of practice and hard work, would be just the best.
We know that it's going to be difficult, and I definitely think there's a very real chance that I could lose, but I'm going to see what I can do after, putting my all into preparing.
I mean, obviously, I've watched Wolf play, winning Worlds 2016, and he's always a defensive player. I've versed him before, back home in Melbourne Regionals.
I know he's a madman, but yeah, I'm excited to play against him as well. I do think the matchup's going to be tricky.
It'll be fun for the crowd because everyone sees Wolf as a, defensive, forward positional player, whereas I'm the opposite.
This is a tournament that for me has had really high peaks and really low lows. I think it'd be really cool to be able to call myself the 3-time US national champion.
To win the championship would be the dream.
Are you ready to welcome your Masters Division finalists? I thought so. Please cheer as we bring them to the stage. First, from the United States, let's hear it for Wolf Glick. And all the way from Australia, it's Graham Amity. We're so looking forward to watching you guys play. Please shake hands, take your seats, and let's get right to it.
Thank you, Anna. What a great matchup this is going to be. Of course, Graham playing a very hyper-offensive team. And if you've seen Wolf play VGC at all, you know that he's going to be going for a very defensive play style.
Yeah, this is a really interesting matchup in terms of just how the Pokemon stack up. So Wolf is using the same team that another remarkable player, Aaron Trailer, was using, and Aaron got very far in the tournament, but Graham actually played Aaron very, very early on in the tournament, I believe round 2 of day 1. So Graham has gotten a sneak peek at what some of these team members do, and that was a pretty decisive 2-0 victory. So I don't think, the matchup is necessarily entirely skewed in one way or the other, but I think, like you mentioned, Graham's team is very, very hyper offensive, and it's quite difficult to beat, especially because of the Mega Medicham, which I am confident we'll be seeing in this set.
Absolutely, just has so much power behind all of its stats. Of course, we never really see Mega Medicham at all. But one thing that I do want to point out between both these players is that Wolf is a player that really enjoys taking a lot of defensive switching. He really enjoys switching to get that board position. But as we saw yesterday, Graham has had some pretty good reads in terms of switching. So that's going to be interesting. You know, is Wolf going to be able to safely switch, or is Graham going to be able to read into those switches and maybe get some extra damage out onto that board?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think this matchup will really be dependent on, I think, Graham trying to set up Tailwind with his Lunala, which we've seen him do, and then try to really get as much damage as possible in those couple of turns, and how Wolf can counteract that. Celesteela is one Pokemon that not too many trainers have opted to use this year, but Wolf has brought into this tournament specifically, and it has really been a key member to his team. We've seen how good it can be with those wide guards to really stop Pokemon like Kyogre from using spread type attacks like Water Spout and Origin Pulse, but it's also a pretty offensive Celesteela. It does a remarkable amount of damage. So I think the name of the game will be how Graham can use Tailwind effectively and how Wolf can counteract that, like you mentioned, through defensive switches, through how he plays with Celesteela, and really stalling out the Tailwind so that he can maybe sweep with something like Rayquaza at the end game.
Let's go ahead and take it down to the stage where both players are currently seated and ready to get underway here for this very exciting Masters Division Finals. Of course, Wolf on the left, Graham on the right. Both players now getting ready for this final match of this tournament. This is it. This is for the title of North American International Champion. Of course, Graham wanting to bring it home for Australia. They have already done it back in 2017. You know, he might be another player to be able to do it. Of course, over on the other side, Wolf going to be chasing for another, you know, sort of accomplishment here, being the first to win 4 big majors, I guess, regional, international, national, and world champion. Of course, here we see his player profile with his team that he's piloting. 2016 world champion, 2-time national champion already, 6 regional championships, and of course, so many world's top cuts, piloting the team of Primal Kyogre, Rayquaza, Gengar, Incineroar, Celesteela, and Tapu Koko.
Yeah, you know, Wolf is not a player who is unfamiliar to the finals. You see there, that's already 9 championships between all the different tournaments, not to mention all the other accomplishments he's had. So definitely, in terms of veteran experience, Wolf's got it here.
Of course, Graham over on the other side. They have faced each other before at a smaller level tournament, at a regional championship. Here with his accomplishments of top 16 at the Oceania region or international championships in 2019 and 2018, and a couple of top 4 finishes. This is his best finish, and he wants to make it big. He's piloting the team of Primal Kyogre, Lunala, that Mega Medicham that we've seen on stream before, Nihilego, Tapu Lele, and Tapu Koko.
Yeah, so Graham really having a remarkable season and a standout season. He has definitely been one of the best players from the Australia region. Been able to travel around the world to compete in a bunch, but this is an absolute big breakout performance for him, and we are about to get into it. I am so excited, Dewey.
Give it up for both of these players here. Give it up for Wolf. Give it up for Graham. This is going to be an exciting matchup, as you can hear the crowd through our headsets here. Jumping now into team preview. This is going to be a great matchup.
Yeah, so, you know, we've already talked about the Pokemon that both players have on their team, so I do want to break into the matchup a little bit. I think, once again, Celesteela is going to be an absolute key Pokemon for Wolf, and wouldn't be too surprised to see him maybe even lead it next to something like Tapu Koko, Rayquaza, or the Incineroar. On Graham's end, he has focused very much on the Mega Medicham and Lunala lead to prioritize getting a quick Tailwind up, and I think Tailwind is still the main strategy of this game. Graham's going to have to watch out for the Celesteela. For that reason, he's probably going to want to bring Pokemon that have a good matchup against it. We saw the Tapu Koko and the Kyogre being the last 2 members of his team when he brought it against Aaron a couple of days ago, and I wouldn't be too surprised to see him stick with the same composition.
Yeah, and of course, Mega Medicham does have access to a very powerful high jump kick. It can do so much damage to that Celesteela, but you do have to watch out for the possibility of a Protect, so that is something that Graham's going to have to be a little bit cautious with in terms of using that Mega Medicham to try to throw out some big damage onto the board. And both players have selected the teams, and here we go. It looks like, there it is, Aaron, that Medicham and that Lunala lead for Graham, while Wolf leads with Celesteela and Rayquaza, just as you predicted.
Yeah, so prioritizing the heavy offense here immediately. You know, Medicham, of course, can fake out one of these 2 users, and Lunala can go for a Tailwind immediately, but that will mean that either Celesteela or Rayquaza will get a huge attack off. I don't think a Celesteela Heavy Slam will be able to knock out the Medicham, of course, but you can do around 80% of damage or so, maybe even put it into extreme speed KO range here. So for this first turn, I think Medicham is definitely going to want to go for a fake out, maybe guaranteed to Tailwind, and Lunala, of course, can go for the Tailwind, but maybe it also just opts to Z move the Celesteela immediately.
Mega Medicham is going to go ahead and take the field here. Going to get an increase in its stats, boosting its already huge attack stat as Medicham goes for the fake out here. It is going to land into that Celesteela slot here. Going to go ahead and make it flinch as Lunala uses a turn to set up a Tailwind, but this opens up an opportunity for this Rayquaza to just pick up the KO on that Mega Medicham.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, and there it is.
There it is, yeah.
So Rayquaza now using Dragon Ascent, not even opting to Mega Evolve just yet, hitting straight into that Mega Medicham slot and gets a big one-hit knockout.
Yeah, so we don't get to see as much from this Mega Medicham, unfortunately. Does get the fast fake out off, and of course this does give Graham a free switch in. Whatever is coming in will be able to take advantage of Tailwind for 3 full turns, but for example, Kyogre, obviously a really, really strong Pokemon, but Celesteela can protect it decently well through Wide Guard. So Graham's going to have to make sure he calls these Wide Guards as he does bring in the Kyogre. We also did see that the Rayquaza, interestingly enough, didn't go for the Mega Evolution immediately. So by going for the Mega now, you will be able to win the Weather War and have the strong winds up. And that's actually a really big deal because Wolf's Rayquaza, of course, does have the strong winds and the Assault Vest. And so it will be able to take an Ice Beam even at -1 special defense. So great decision not to Mega Evolve there.
Yeah, and of course you are tempted to Mega Evolve just to get that speed boost and of course get those increased stats. But again, as you said, smart play right there from Wolf.
So this turn is going to be really big. Celesteela, of course, has the option to protect. It can also go for a Wide Guard. If Graham decides to double up into the Rayquaza with a Moongeist Beam and an Ice Beam, that will be a knockout despite the Assault Vest. So Graham has to make the call here. Do you predict the Celesteela to go for a Protect and double up into Rayquaza? Or even if it doesn't Protect, do you go for the Ice Beam instead of the Origin Pulse? I think it is relatively safe to Moongeist Beam and Ice Beam Rayquaza, but Wolf, of course, can take advantage of that by switching out into something like Incineroar.
Yeah, so Incineroar here going to go ahead and take the field. We'll be able to take those Ice Beams way better than that Rayquaza here. The Intimidate is not going to matter at all onto the Kyogre or the Lunala. Both very specially focused here as Celesteela goes for a Wide Guard here just to cover the option of a possible Origin Pulse or Water Spout in the rain into that Incineroar, but it looks like it's going to be a menacing Moonraze Maelstrom here from this Lunala. Gonna go ahead and try to deal out some big damage if it lands in that Celesteela.
Yeah, who is it going into? That's the big question. Targeting Celesteela here would be a huge, huge win for Graham instead of just wasting it on the Incineroar switch in. So we'll see who this targets because Incineroar switching into it would be a great play on Wolf's end.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be a great
defense. Oh, it's
Celesteela!
What an excellent play there from Graham.
So that is going to be sort of punishing here towards that Celesteela. Did not protect, opted for a Wide Guard instead. Now going to be taking some big damage. Celesteela, of course, a very bulky Pokemon, should be able to hang on, but the fact that it's been dealt so much damage just might not have it have that staying power, and Celesteela just barely hangs on with a sliver of hit points, and Kyogre goes for an Ice Beam here. Where's it going?
Celesteela, what a play by Graham!
What a play!
Phenomenal play. Wow, that was incredible. Graham going for that because, of course, the Rayquaza is a major threat, but a Dragon Ascent won't knock out the Lunala nor the Kyogre, especially because it's not boosted by something like a Life Orb or a Choice Band. So Graham making such a good play there to be able to get rid of Celesteela this early on is a major, major victory, especially because that means Wolf no longer has the support of Wide Guard. Of course, Incineroar does have the pressure of Fake Out. You can only Fake Out the Kyogre, but you probably should in this position. Main thing is, Graham is taking advantage of that Tailwind, and that was just an excellent play, knocking out the Celesteela there, really paving the way for the remainder of this game.
Yeah, and that Shadow Shield on Lunala is still intact here, so it will be able to take any hit very handily. Rayquaza now Mega Evolving, going to go ahead and change that weather, going to go ahead and, you know, reduce those flying type weaknesses with that Delta Stream and those mysterious winds. So Kyogre's Ice Beam, as you mentioned, will not be able to get the KO as Kyogre here safely just protects itself, going to prevent it from taking a Fake Out or even a big hit from that Rayquaza here, but no fake out from Incineroar. Side Shock from that Lunala hits into that Rayquaza, doing big damage since it's on its physical spectrum there as Icy Wind from Rayquaza is revealed. Going to go ahead and slow things down a little bit and also go ahead and break that Shadow Shield. Going to go ahead and open up Graham's Lunala to a possible Dark type attack from the Incineroar here, as here comes a Darkest Lariat from this Incineroar, lands into that Lunala slot. How much damage is this going to do to this Lunala, who is so bulky? Lunala gets KO'd from that range.
Oh, excellent play there by Wolf to counter Graham's excellent play from the previous turn. That was really, really well done. I think Graham going for the Protect there on Kyogre, doesn't want to take a Fake Out and something like a Dragon Ascent. So Wolf reading into that, doesn't care, gets the knockout onto Lunala, which is, of course, a major threat. Graham is down to the last 2 Pokemon, but of course, Tailwind is still up. There is no fake out pressure now. And yeah, I mean, Tapu Koko, a great Pokemon to have in right now. Incineroar doesn't really have too much of offensive presence. Of course, can go for some chip damage with the Darkest Lariat onto Kyogre, but the key thing here is Rayquaza's Assault Vest, so it can't protect, and Graham can use that knowledge to definitely target that slot. We haven't seen too much of Graham's Tapu Koko, but this is a very, very close game. Both players really trading blows back and forth.
And Rayquaza now using extreme speed, going to go ahead and throw out some damage on that Kyogre. About 30% right there as Tapu Koko reveals Wild Charge as the Mysterious Winds weaken the amount of damage that Wild Charge does to their Rayquaza, bring it down to about a quarter of its hit points as Tapu Koko takes some recall here as Kyogre goes for a Water Spout. How much damage is this going to do to this Rayquaza and Incineroar? Rayquaza takes absolutely nothing as Incineroar hangs on as well. So, you know, Incineroar now using U-turn, going to go ahead and land into that Kyogre and going to go ahead and switch out.
Nice play there, really on both ends. So Wolf going for the extreme speed, making sure that the Water Spout does less damage, and you see just how great the Assault Vest is there. Both Pokemon being able to hang on, and Wolf's last Pokemon is revealed. It is that Tapu Koko, and that's a really great Pokemon to have out right now because Tailwind just petered out, and Tapu Koko on Graham's end shouldn't really be able to do too much to Wolf's Tapu Koko. So I think Wolf's actually positioned himself really, really well. And even though he did lose that Celesteela earlier on the game, the excellent double up into Lunala and Kyogre not getting any mileage off there means that Wolf is actually in a pretty commanding position because the Tapu Koko can safely target down the opposing Kyogre slot. And I'm not sure Graham's Tapu Koko can even 2-hit KO Wolf's.
Yeah, so tough spot right now for Graham. He's going to have to try to find some way to adjust his board position or go to the drawing board for game 2 already. So it's tough. I mean, once you're down to your last 2 Pokemon, you don't really have much defensive pivoting that you can do with switches. So Wolf still with that Incineroar. Obviously, cycling those Intimidates are not going to matter, but getting those fake out pressures back are going to be important as well. As Kyogre here from Graham's side, going to go ahead and protect itself here. Not going to want to take a Thunderbolt from that Tapu Koko as it does land into that Kyogre protect as Tapu Koko over on Graham's side goes again for a Wild Charge, hitting in that Rayquaza, gets the KO from that range. So big knockout right there to bring it down to 2-2.
Yeah, the thing is, though, however, of course, Wolf will be able to bring in the Incineroar, will be able to go for, of course, a fake out, and you can just launch a Thunderbolt once again freely into the Kyogre slot. With no means of speed control from Graham's end, then the Tapu Koko, once again, on Wolf's side is just faster than everything. So really, really well managed by Wolf, good board positioning, and yes, the knockout onto Rayquaza is nice, but once again, the Tapu Koko on the opposing side is still just faster, and so I'm just not sure if Graham has enough damage output to beat the Tapu Koko at this point.
Yeah, so again, tough position here. Incineroar can just go for that fake out, and Tapu Koko on Wolf's side just ready to deal as much damage as it really wants to.
Yeah, you know, if it had a speed decrease move, here's a double
protect.
No
double protect for Kyogre, though, as Incineroar now uses Fake Out. Going to land in that Tapu Koko. Going to go ahead and make it flinch as Wolf's Tapu Koko now uses Thunderbolt on that Kyogre, boosted by the Electric Train, gets a KO from that range, and it's going to come down to Graham's Tapu Koko versus 2 more Pokemon on Wolf's side. So tough spot right here for Graham.
Yeah, it looked pretty difficult. I don't think Graham really had too many options after the beginning, or after Tailwind expired. Wolf brought out Tapu Koko exactly out at the right point, and yeah, I mean, even though Graham made such a nice read knocking out that Celesteela, Wolf really countered with it immediately with the excellent read with the Icy Wind and the Darkest Lariat, and that is a really big deal because Graham basically didn't get enough out of his turns of Tailwind, even though he did get that knockout onto Celesteela. Had Kyogre gone for a big Water Spout off that turn, that actually could have decided the game. But of course, it's really difficult to go for a play like that because Wolf could have just went for Fake Out, Dragon Ascend into Kyogre, and then it would be an Extreme Speed KO range in this next turn. So.
Yeah, and here comes a Twinkle Tackle from Wolf's side. So going to go ahead and just ensure that the KO onto Graham's opposing Tapu Koko is able to ensure his victory here in Game 1. Of course, that is more information for Graham to know that the Tapu Koko is actually carrying that Twinkle Tackle attack. So that should wrap it up here for Game 1 between Wolf and Graham. Wolf taking it in pretty good fashion, although Graham did claw it back here as Tapu Koko hangs on with just a sliver of hit points. Going to go ahead and go for a Wild Charge in that Incineroar. Again, more recoil, but here comes Incineroar's Darkest Lariat, and that will do it for Game 1 here. Wolf Glick takes it.
Yeah, that was a really, really fun game, though. I felt like both players were making really nice plays, and you can see Wolf's game plan. I was actually a little bit surprised to see the Fake Out have gone into Celesteela in the beginning of that game, just giving up Medicham for free, but it certainly makes sense on Graham's end, because if the Celesteela is heavy slamming the Medicham, then actually it's just an Extreme Speed KO range the next turn. So I mean, Graham kind of has to go back to the drawing board. Is he comfortable leading with just Medicham and Lunala again? Because Wolf's strategy has basically been to knock out the Medicham, which puts on so much pressure against everything that he has. Of course, had Graham made 2 of the reads back-to-back, you know, we saw that really, really great double up into Celesteela, but had he targeted and attacked with Kyogre the next turn, then probably would have won this game, to be honest, but it's really difficult to make 2 reads like that back-to-back, especially against a player like Wolf. So, yeah, the question is Graham willing to go back to the drawing board and give up Medicham immediately, or does he maybe want to switch it up a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you know, one thing that Graham might want to look into is possibly protecting that Mega Medicham a little bit better. You know, it kind of just threw out that fake out, but then after that, it got KO'd immediately, really removing a lot of offensive pressure from Graham's side of the field.
Yeah, certainly. You know, one thing that is kind of interesting is that the Rayquaza there didn't Mega Evolve, so maybe if you think Wolf's not going to Mega Evolve the Rayquaza again, you can actually double up into the Rayquaza with Medicham and Lunala and potentially knock it out before you can even get an attack off. That could be interesting because then, yeah, even if Celesteela heavy slams the Medicham, it won't be in threat of something like an Extreme Speed, and you'll still have the Shadow Shield. So really curious to see how Graham adjusts here. Medicham and Lunala certainly still work, so just have to play it a little bit differently or make a bunch of really great reads while the Tailwind turns are up.
And here we go now, jumping into Game 2 between these 2 players in the Masters Division Finals, Graham versus Wolf. Graham here trying to force a Game 3 as Wolf leads with Rayquaza and Celesteela yet again as Graham leads with Medicham and Lunala. How is this game going to play out differently than Game 1?
Yeah, so once again, of course, Graham has the option to go for the fake out onto either of these. Last time we saw it go into Rayquaza, and you trade Medicham for Tailwind, basically. I mean, that's going to be difficult to go for again because even though, once again, Graham made the perfect read on that first turn, and that's a tough read to make. I mean, Wolf maybe wants to protect the Celesteela a little bit better this time around, then, yeah, you're not really going to get very far. So, like I mentioned, if you expect Rayquaza to not Mega Evolve, maybe you actually double up into it here and just try to get a knockout while just taking 60 to 80% of damage from Heavy Slam onto Medicham. You can even switch out the Medicham into something like, I mean, Tapu Koko, but I don't really think a switch is really great here, but I think Wolf is almost always doubling up into Medicham here.
Yeah, and it looks like Mega Rayquaza is going to go ahead and take the field here, going to go ahead and just Mega Evolve right off the bat and become the fastest Pokemon onto the field, which could be problematic here if Graham decides to go into the offensive here. Rayquaza going to go ahead and activate that Delta Stream, bring out those mysterious winds that help it be so bulky as Medicham now Mega Evolves as well. Is that fake out going to go into Rayquaza? Is it just going to be another Dragon Ascent KO onto that Mega Medicham? This is going to be so close here as the turn now plays off the fake out. Rayquaza goes for a Dragon Ascent.
Oh my goodness.
Hits into that Medicham and gets the big one-hit knockout. Wow. Graham not really doing much with that Medicham at all. Just 2 consecutive one-hit KOs on the first turn as Rayquaza's defenses drop here. And now the rest of the turn is going to play out, but Graham loses a lot of offensive power. Lunala content with just going for a Tailwind here. Just going to go ahead and try to set up. And it looks like Celesteela going to go for a Heavy Slam. That is going to go ahead and break that Shadow Shield onto that Lunala.
Yeah, so had Graham gone for the same play this first turn, it actually would have worked out better than the first game because Rayquaza did choose the Mega Evolve, so you get Kyogre in and Ice Beam would guarantee... Oh, Ice Beam here still, of course, will knock out the Rayquaza, but the main thing is you've lost Shadow Shield on Lunala. So, yeah, going for the play that we were talking about before the start of this game, maybe hoping to double up into Rayquaza, hoping it doesn't Mega Evolve, and hoping to just get a knockout, but Wolf decides to play it safe this time, goes for the Mega Evolution, and probably gets the most that he could have out of that turn. Free knockout onto the Medicham, and breaking the Shadow Shield here is a really, really big deal. Of course, now he is at -1 special defense, and the rain is up, so an Ice Beam will be able to knock it out. So Wolf has to make the call, you know, am I basically protecting Celesteela this time around, or am I just going to go for the same play last time? And is Graham going to call it double up into Celesteela with the Z move and Ice Beam once again, or does he go for something like a Water Spout, knowing that Rayquaza is going to switch out? And if you think Rayquaza is going to stay in, do you just Ice Beam the Rayquaza? Because now, of course, it still gets all these strong Dragon Ascents off.
Yeah, so tough play right now from Graham's side. Tough decision that he has to make here. You know, it's tempting to chase down that Rayquaza with an Ice Beam just to try to get the KO on a huge offense threat over on Wolf's side of the field. So here comes Rayquaza, going to go ahead and switch out, going to go ahead and switch into Incineroar, and is it going to be another play of Celesteela going for a Wide Guard to protect that Incineroar switch, as this, again, this Intimidate does not matter against this Lunala or this Kyogre. And here we go as the turn continues. Celesteela going for a Wide Guard. Is it going to play out just like it did in Game 1 here, as Lunala just going for a regular Moongeist Beam. Going to go ahead and target down into that Celesteela slot, I believe, just to get some damage out onto the field. No, actually goes for that Incineroar slot, so it's not very effective at all as Kyogre goes for a Water Spout, but that is going to be protected by that wide guard.
Yeah, great play by Wolf there. He actually goes for the exact same strategy as the first game, but I think that makes a lot of sense from his end. Even if Graham doubles up into a Celesteela, this time you're actually a little bit further ahead. Like, Celesteela will go down, but now you have Incineroar out, you can bring Rayquaza back out, and Lunala doesn't have its Shadow Shield anymore, so it's kind of the same mind games from the first game, but even more in your favor now. And with Graham going for that Water Spout last turn, Wolf is in a really fantastic position to stall out this Tailwind. You can go for a relatively free fake out. Celesteela could even protect here if it wants to bypass a potential Z move from the Lunala, but Graham actually maybe reading into this and switching out into Tapu Koko.
Tapu Koko takes the field, going to go ahead and activate that electric terrain here and boost its electric type attacks as the Lunala switches out. Does not want to get KO'd just yet as Celesteela goes for a wide guard again to protect that Incineroar. So this Kyogre not able to go for those really powerful Origin Pulses or Water Spouts, content with just going for an Ice Beam here to chip away at that Celesteela, doing some good damage as Incineroar now goes for a Darkest Lariat into what was that Lunala slot. Not very effective damage, so a smarter switch right there, preserving that Lunala for later on.
Yeah, excellent play there from Graham, I think. Instead of just getting baited into knocking out the Celesteela, committing the Z move, knows that he needs to conserve it for the remainder of the game. Tapu Koko, really a great switch in here, and one for many reasons, of course. It has super effective attacks off against the Celesteela, and an electric type attack might just be able to knock it out if Rayquaza doesn't switch in. Also means that Wolf just can't click wide guard for free.
Yeah, so Incineroar now switches out. It looks like a Rayquaza switch is going to be the play here for Wolf as Rayquaza switches back in. The Mysterious Winds are going to go ahead and replace that Heavy Rain. So again, that Delta Stream so important in preserving this Rayquaza here as Celesteela goes for another wide guard to protect from a possible Dazzling Gleam, possibly from Tapu Koko, but instead here comes a Nature's Madness, going to go ahead and land in that Celesteela, taking down 50% from where it was as Kyogre goes for a Water Spout, but again, protected by that wide guard.
Yeah, these wide guards have been so huge, and Graham has been choosing to kind of walk into it, but you can't really fault him for that because there's so many mind games with Celesteela, but Wolf really content just to spam it, and it's been working out quite nicely. We talked about it before the match started, but this match would really come down to a question of how Wolf can handle this Tailwind. And once again, he's been able to stall out the first couple of turns and the first Tailwind. And it will be a lot more difficult for Graham to set up this second Tailwind if he wants to, because there is no fake out support from the Medicham. So really nice play once again, but still not in the clear. Of course, Rayquaza here does threaten Kyogre, but not with an immediate knockout. Here's an Electro Web.
Yeah, so Electro Web now lands onto both the Celesteela and the Rayquaza. Of course, that Mysterious Wind also protecting that Celesteela. So, you know, it's going to go ahead and slow things down just a little bit. One stage is decreased speed for both of these Pokemon. That's going to be really important later on, since Rayquaza is such a speed Pokemon, as Dragon Ascent from this Mega Rayquaza now is going to go ahead and land into that Primal Kyogre and do some big damage right there. Kyogre hangs on with 30% of its hit points as Rayquaza's defenses drop, as Kyogre now goes for a Water Spout that is going to be connecting here. Big damage on that Celesteela. Well, nope, because it was damaged, but Celesteela hangs on. Celesteela now goes for a Heavy Slam. It is going to go ahead and hit into that Tapu Koko slot. Does good damage right there. Tapu Koko hangs on with about 30% of its hit points.
Yeah, but this is certainly a better turn for Wolf. You have put to Tapu Koko most certainly in extreme speed KO range. Kyogre, it looks really close, but fantastically managed there. I really like the Electro Web. I'm actually shocked we didn't see it in the end of that first game, because that's exactly what I think Graham needed to maybe have a shot at it. But yeah, no Electro Web reveal until just now, and things are really getting quite low on Graham's end. Wolf still has a potential fourth Pokemon in the back. You'd imagine it is that Tapu Koko. If it is, then it will be able to just outspeed and knock things out. So a really great turn there by Wolf. Graham gets something off, but I don't know, the Rayquaza is just putting in so much work, and you can click extreme speed now.
Yeah.
Or you can just switch out. I mean, there's so many options, right? Like Wolf still has all his Pokemon intact.
Yeah, and that is tough, and that is just one thing that Wolf is so well known for, just being able to switch out freely, just picking the best defensive switches that he can possibly make. And here comes Wolf's Tapu Koko, just ready to clean up as Tapu Koko over on Graham's side now, using Nature's Madness connects onto Wolf's Tapu Koko. Gonna go ahead and bring it down to 50% of its remaining hit points.
It's faster
goes for an
still.
Ice Beam, gonna go ahead and hit onto that Tapu Koko slot. Tapu Koko does not hang on, gets KO'd there, but Celesteela does get to move here. Gonna go for a Heavy Slam, and it is gonna go ahead and slam right into that Tapu Koko and get the KO and get a Beast Boost.
Yeah, you know, Celesteela just exerting so much pressure. I think like Wolf is content with that trade, because now it's 3 down to 2. And Rayquaza, more importantly, still has the Assault Vest, will be able to get strong wings intact, and an Ice Beam from the Kyogre won't knock it out this time. Celesteela is also healing back from leftovers every turn a little bit consistently as well. So one of the questions I have is Extreme Speed going to do enough damage to the Kyogre? Looks really, really close, honestly. If not, I mean, Rayquaza still pressures Lunala, of course, with something like a Dragon Ascent. The Celesteela is slowed down, but it already was going to be slower. Rayquaza right now, of course, the fastest Pokemon on the field. Giving up Tapu Koko does mean that you give up the fastest Pokemon, but the thing is, you'll notice that Incineroar defeats Lunala, and Lunala really can't touch Incineroar at all. So all Wolf really needs to do is find a way to knock out this Kyogre, and Incineroar should be able to win this game.
Yep, and of course, Graham on the other side now has to prioritize protecting that Kyogre to be able to deal with that Incineroar in the back. So that's going to be priority number one for Graham, really, as Lunala needs to find a way to KO this Rayquaza. But like you said, it's still really healthy, still has that Assault Vest, and, you know, a menacing Moonraze Maelstrom. Is it going to be enough to KO that Rayquaza if Wolf even allows that attack to even land?
Yeah, let's see. The Dragon Ascent does
go into the protect
yeah.
here. Kyogre does protect itself there, and it looks like the menacing Moonraze Maelstrom from Graham's Lunala here is going to go ahead and land. If it lands in that Rayquaza, the big question is how much damage is it going to do here?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to knock out with the Assault Vest, and Wolf basically going for the safest play. Once again, you know Kyogre is the main threat because Incineroar will win against Lunala, so free to just click Dragon Ascent into that slot. Doesn't want to risk Extreme Speed, of course. You're faster than Kyogre anyway, so there's really no need to Extreme Speed, and you're faster than Lunala. So, you know, I think Graham going for the best play possible. I think it might come down to whether he's able to get a double protect off or not. If he is, then there is still an opportunity for him to potentially win the game, but Wolf is still just in a very, very good position. No need to make any advanced predictions at this stage in the game. Let's see how much this does.
Big damage on that Rayquaza. Rayquaza hangs on so handily right there as Celesteela now using Heavy Slam. Gonna go ahead and connect into that Lunala. Broken the Shadow Shield earlier. Does big damage as well. Bringing Lunala down to about 30% right there. So, here comes some mind games. You know, Kyogre can go for the double protect, but of course, Rayquaza can also just easily protect as well and allow Wolf's Celesteela just get the KO on that Lunala.
Yeah, I don't actually think Graham has a way to win this game at this point because you do have the wide guard on Celesteela, so even if Kyogre gets the double protect, Lunala's forced to knock out the Rayquaza, Celesteela will just knock out the Lunala, and then you have Incineroar versus Celesteela, and you can just click wide guard, Darkest Lariat, and Kyogre cannot touch the Incineroar. So
yep, Kyogre goes for protect here. It fails though, so it looks like Rayquaza's Dragon Ascent is going to connect onto this Kyogre, and this is it.
I mean, yeah, Wolf's got to be able to taste the international championship. He's so close, and yeah, I mean, Graham going for some plays here, but I just don't think it will be enough. Wolf really just had to go for the safe options after making some really, really great reads earlier on in this game.
There's a KO on the Kyogre. Lunala here going for a Tailwind, but now this Celesteela gets to make a move. And it is going to be a Heavy Slam, lands into that Lunala, and Wolf Glick is your North American International Champion.
Wow. 6-time regional champion, 2 times national champion, 1-time international champion, and of course world champion as well. Wolf is really making a strong case for being the greatest player of all time in this game, and his accomplishments span from so many different years. I thought Graham made some really great plays as well, but the nature of hyper offense is you need to make multiple calls correct. And, you know, in that first game, Graham was looking so great, knocking out that Celesteela immediately, but Wolf making such a great read, doubling up into Lunala with the Icy Wind, with the Darkest Lariat. That really sealed up that game. I just really would have liked to see the Electro Web in that first game. We saw it revealed in the second game, and I was thinking, okay, if there is a speed decreasing move like Electro Web, I mean, that's pretty much the only option, then you still have a chance there because then Kyogre can outspeed. But maybe based off how the Kyogre was trained, he knew even at -1 speed from the opposing Tapu Koko, Kyogre wouldn't outspeed, or maybe he just forgot it as an option. Not entirely sure. Either way, second game, you know, Wolf once again making a really nice play, choosing to Mega Evolve immediately, getting the knockout immediately onto the Medicham, and then playing so well with the wide guards. We saw the Kyogre walk into wide guard so many times with Water Spout, and once again, you can't fault Graham for that. There's so many tricky mind games. There's a reason why Wolf's been so good with the wide guard, with the Celesteela set, and wow, what a final set.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you know, as you mentioned, going back into game 1, there definitely was an opportunity for that Electro Web to be used, to be revealed. That would have really been important. Of course, it, again, would have come down to whether or not that Tapu Koko would still outspeed the Kyogre on Graham's side. So you're right, maybe, you know, it is a very slow Kyogre that just really relies on that Tailwind in order to be able to outspeed other Pokemon. So again, close set from both players. Of course, we saw, you know, that hyper offensive playstyle from Graham. You know, in game 2, he really went for it. You know, Mega Medicham didn't go for a fake out, just instead went on the offensive, and Wolf just took advantage of it. And from there, he just had the best board position.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, credits to Graham for a remarkable tournament run using one of the most creative teams we've seen in a while. We didn't get to see Medicham use too well in this finals, and I think that's because Wolf found a really good strategy to counteract it immediately from the get-go, and that is kind of speaks to the is a testament to the preparation that Wolf had coming into this day and coming into this championship match. But I believe we're actually ready to hear a little bit more from our brand new champion, Wolf.
Wolf, you have a lot of impressive wins under your belt in Pokemon, but what does this particular international championship win mean to you?
It means a lot. With this win, I'm now the first player to win a regional and national, the World Championships, and also an international event. And just winning the event after having trouble with it, you know, so many of the past few years, I feel really amazing.
You said that you kept working and trying to improve and bring new things to your game. What was it that got you here today, you think?
Celesteela.
And why was that?
Well, to put it like simply, sometimes you're the Celesteela and sometimes the Celesteela eats you. It just beat everybody. The team was bad and Celesteela was very good.
I know there were a lot of people that helped you practice and get ready for this. Who are they, and do you want to say thanks?
Yes, Eduardo, Aaron, Brendan, Trey, Marcus, those guys all helped me immeasurably over the past few weeks, and also last night and this morning helping me prepare for the matchup. Really amazing friends, and I can't say thank you enough for all the help with that they provided.
You're now going to be headed off to Worlds, very well set for that event. What can we expect from you there?
I'm not entirely sure as to like what I'll be bringing, but you know, I feel like there's a good chance that I do well, and I you know, having won the World Championships the last time we had a similar format to this, I hope to make waves.
Great. Well, congratulations again. We wish you luck. Let's hear it one more time for your champion, Wolf. Casters, back to you.
Thank you, Anna. What a wonderful tournament it has been. It has been 3 days of action, well, just packed of Pokemon action here.
Yeah. And
I mean, so much has happened in these past 3 days. Coming into this tournament, of course, we didn't really know what was going to be the dominant duo. I mean, a lot of players expected Groudon Xerneas to be, you know, the top duo of restricted Pokemon, and they thought that would be the winning duo, but it isn't. It's Rayquaza Kyogre. What are the odds?
Yeah, I mean, if there's anyone to pilot Rayquaza Kyogre to the very top, it's got to be Wolf, who of course won the 2016 World Championships, as you heard just now, with the Rayquaza Kyogre core. And I mean, this was such a hype tournament. I'm so excited because we still have the biggest tournament of the year, the World Championships, left in August, and that is just going to be so hype. I mean, so many of the players that we saw on stream, especially in day 2 here today and in the Top Cut, will be competing in the day 2 of the World Championships in just 2 months. And I mean, if the level of play we saw here was anything close to what we'll see at Worlds, then I think we're in store for a very, very great event there.
And of course, you know, not just what we saw in the Masters division, but also the Juniors and Seniors division. I mean, those championship matches that we actually saw just a little bit earlier, those were awesome matches. I mean, you got to see a Mega Lucario. You got to see, you know, Connor from Singapore defeat Kenneth from Canada, and that was in itself a very great match, right?
It's really, truly some incredible sets, and we had a lot of different legendary duels, you know, make it to the very top. I think it was cool that we saw Groudon Xerneas win, of course, in the Juniors division. There was, of course,
Yveltal Kyogre.
Yep, making the finals as well. And, of course, in the Seniors division, Lunala and Xerneas, which is a core that was really dominant in the Sun and Moon series, but maybe not as much in here in Ultra series, being able to take the very top. And, of course, Rayquaza Kyogre and another Lunala Kyogre here in the final. So, you know, one of the things that has really impacted and defined this format is there are a lot more legendary restricted duels that you're able to use viably compared to something like 2016, and that's because there are newer Pokemon like Necrozma, like Solgaleo, like Lunala. So really interesting to see how players build around some of the newer Pokemon, of course, as well as some old faces. But what an incredible tournament. I really, really had so much fun watching all the games, all the different players, and I can't wait for Worlds.
Yeah, and not just restricted duos, but also the support Pokemon that were chosen. I mean, we saw Mega Medicham, we saw Mega Lucario in the Seniors division. It was just crazy. I mean, we also saw Landis-Therian, which we thought wouldn't really show up too much in this tournament. All make appearances, of course, Incineroar, Tapu Fini, you know, Tapu Koko, Tapu Lele, a lot of the usual suspects that we would expect to see in terms of support Pokemon. But again, I mean, anything can happen. Mega Medicham can make it all the way to the finals. Mega Lucario could become a championship Pokemon in the Seniors division. So, I mean, Worlds has just so much, and one of the great things that I really enjoy about Worlds is just it's the last tournament of the season. It's one of the last tournaments of this format, and I think that's where a lot of players come out with all of their techs.
Yeah, of course, going back to Masters Finals, I mean, we've been speaking about Wolf a bunch, but I think Graham has so much to be proud of, representing his region with, once again, one of the most innovative teams that we've seen in the format and in the game. And he played so well on stream throughout the entire run. I know he has a lot to be proud of, and I really can't wait to see what he ends up bringing to the World Championships. I mean, like, hyper offense is just a really, really hard strategy to play with in general because you have to make so many great plays, and that was what Graham was doing the entire course of the tournament. But when you go up against a more defensive play style like Wolf is really known for, it's going to be really difficult. But I think Graham certainly gave an excellent show and made a lot of great plays.
Definitely poked some holes in Wolf's strategy. You know, a lot of the switches, Graham actually kind of was able to throw out a lot of damage when Wolf went into his traditional, you know, switch out defensive switching style. So, you know, Graham poked a couple of holes there, and it's pretty crazy to see. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at the bracket to see Wolf's journey to the finals and to this North American International Championship title. Again, you know, he had a tough match against Flavio Del Pidio, and of course that intense set versus Jean-Paul Lopez Buiza that we saw on stream. That was just absolutely intense set that came down to the wire. Jean-Paul gave Wolf pretty much everything that Jean-Paul had, and Wolf barely just squeaked it out. Yeah, Graham had some really dominating performances, of course, up to the finals as well, defeating Melvin and coming up with this really creative strategy to go around Shedinja, which is a Pokemon that causes many problems for a lot of trainers because of the mind games that it causes. As for Jonathan Evans, of course, had a really exhilarating set. Graham was able to win that 2-0 as well. So finally stopped by Wolfglick, but in a very fun finals, one that featured two teams that were definitely pretty different in how they operate. And ultimately, Wolf took advantage of a bunch of things. He took advantage of the wide guard on Celesteela. He took advantage of the fact that Graham's team did not have Incineroar or Intimidate in general, and was able to just really do so much good damage across the board with that Rayquaza while still protecting all the members. I mean, it's really interesting to see him like be able to play with Celesteela and Incineroar the way he did, where, you know, so normally switching Incineroar against the Kyogre is so risky, but he was able to pull it off. So really, once again, remarkable play, but fun stuff from the top 8. These are truly some of the best players in the world, and we'll be seeing them in, I'm sure, the top cut of the World Championships. Let's go ahead and review the Seniors Division bracket as well to see Kareem's path to his title of North American International Champion. Kareem, of course, had to face off against George Bowman and then faced off against Zach Gray in the semifinals. Over on the other side, of course, Quinton is actually one of the best players in the world in the Seniors Division, amassing so many championship points throughout this entire season. So it was definitely a very tough matchup for Kareem to be able to stare down Quinton and be like, oh, I had to play him, I had to beat him to get the title of North American International Champion. Of course, Quinton also had a tough way over to this side of the finals, actually, too. He had to face off against defending North American International Champion Alfredo Chen Gonzalez, and of course had to face off against Juan from Argentina, who we know won the 2019 Oceania International Championships, so a tough path for Kareem as well. Let's go ahead and review the Juniors Division bracket here with Connor from Singapore taking it all. I love the flag representation here. Actually, you know, this is the North American International Championships, but you have one player from the United States and looks like 2 players from Canada, and everyone else is from everywhere else. So kind of cool to see so many players from so many different regions represented here, and that's a testament to the international in North America International Championships. You know, earlier Wolf was talking about how he wanted to win his 3rd national title. This is actually a bigger tournament than national. So Connor, of course, though, truly one of the best players in the juniors division, very consistently over a long period of time as well. And I thought Kenneth gave him a really great fight in that finals, having such a dominant victory in that first game. I think Connor was able to really figure out the matchup. That matchup looked so difficult for Kenneth, so I think Kenneth has a lot to be proud of. He can walk away with his head held high, knowing that he gave one of the best juniors in the world a run for his money. And truly, such a internationally diverse top cut, that's exactly what we like to see. Yeah, and I was backstage watching the match once that Black Hole Eclipse from the Eviltal really connected with that Landorus and one hit KO'd it. I was jumping for Joe. I was jumping backstage just because, you know, we don't see that move too often. Of course, I don't exactly know how much damage that does to a Landorus. So, you know, congratulations to all of the players who competed here. And like you said, you know, this is this is called the North American International Championships. It truly is an international championship. Players from all over the world come here to compete in VGC, in Pokemon VGC and TCG, and it's tough, right? Like, the best players from all over the world come here, and it's a small pool of players, We saw all the top 8 brackets that we just had, and it's intense. It's just a tough bracket to try to get through, and for Wolf to be able to do that, it's crazy.
Yeah, so exciting, and obviously we were hyped about Masters VG Finals, but I really loved watching the juniors and seniors play. I thought there was some really high-level play.
I enjoy watching the juniors
across.
and seniors playing. You know, they're out there just having fun. A lot of them just really want to be up on the stream, on the big stage, to be able to showcase their skills in competing. So that's always nice to see, too.
And I mean, really high-level play, right? I felt like Game 3, for example, in the seniors division could have gone both ways. I'm thinking specifically about the turn where the Tapu Lele stayed in and took the Super Fang and the Gyro Ball, allowing for a free switch in.
Oh, remember when that Gyro Ball KO'd that Lucario for 50%?
Yeah.
Not very effective, huh?
Putting in a lot of work there as well. But, you know, I thought like, one of the nice things that we get to see in a best of 3 is how the best players are able to adjust, right? And so when you look at the juniors division and how that ended up playing out, we saw the lead switch up, we saw, you know, the way to work around Stack Attack. In the seniors division, of course, some really nice adjustments by leading with the Tapu Lele. You know, same leads, but this time taunting the Crobat. That worked 2 times in a row. Really impressive. And of course, in Masters, adjustments from both ends, right? Graham going for the attack instead of going for the fake out. Wolf deciding, I'm going to Mega Evolve this time. I'm going to Dragon Stun and called it correctly.
Yep, what a wonderful tournament it has been here at the 2019 North American International Championships. Unfortunately, that's it for me and Aaron, but let's go ahead and throw it down to the stage with Anna for our trophy ceremony. Take care.
I'm joined on stage by Pikachu and Eevee. They want to say thank you to all of the trainers who competed here at the 2019 North America International Championship. And now it is time to recognize this event's Pokemon video game finalists. Please cheer very loud for all of them as I introduce them to you one more time. First, congratulations to our video game junior finalist, Kenneth Fung. And congratulations to our video game junior champion, Connor Yuen. Next, we have our video game senior finalist, Quentin Colon. And our video game senior champion, Kareem Muakit. In our Masters division, our video game Masters finalist is Graham Amity. And taking home the trophy for video game Masters champion, Wolf Glick. One more time, let's hear it for all of our North American International champions. Thanks again to all of you trainers, everyone who was here competing, and everyone who tuned in online. It was so nice having you. Share all of your favorite moments on social media using the hashtag PlayPokemon, and remember to stay connected to all of the Pokemon action at Pokemon.com. That's all for us here at the North America International Championship, but we can't wait to see you again in August in Washington, D.C. for Worlds. Until then, good night.